Chapter 399. Formations were ever-changing. Some focused on confusion, and would forcibly trap a person to death. Some were killing formations, and once one entered the formation, one would encounter an endless amount of danger. Meanwhile, some were defensive formations, and were like iron barrels. Great mountain protection formations usually focused on defense, and the one in the Fire Country's Imperial Palace was one such formation. Although it was a level 6 formation, even a spiritual infantier elite would find it very difficult to forcefully break through. That was because once a gap was opened, it would very quickly close up. Unless one's power was strong enough to create a huge gap, only then would one be able to pass through easily. That would require at least the power of a spiritual infantier elite. Ling Han's battle prowess was very awesome, but he was still unable to break through the limits of the spiritual infantier. Thus, he could not possibly force his way through this great formation. However, this was a completely different matter from breaking through the formation. With the Eye of Truth, this formation had practically no secrets in front of him. The simplest way to break through the formation is to destroy a few of the formation's eyes inside. However, the formation's eyes are inside the formation, so this is contradictory unless someone is working together from the inside. However, there is still a slightly more troublesome way to break through the formation, and that is to simultaneously attack a few weak points to create a temporary gap, Ling Han mumbled. Strange images of the sun, moon, and stars surged in his eyes. If I use the annihilating dragon star arrow to attack those 7 points at the same time, I believe I will be able to create a huge gap. He took a deep breath, spread out his hands, and made a drawing posture of a bow. Instantly, 7 spots of light suddenly appeared, turning into 7 arrowheads. Then, the body of the arrowhead that was intertwined with white light also appeared, densely covered with characters. This similarly did not belong to the current cultivation system, and it emitted an ancient and terrifying presence. The Eye of Truth and the annihilating dragon star arrow, the combination of the two great mystical powers was practically a perfect match. For no reason, everyone in the Imperial Palace felt an endless chill, as if they would suffer a terrifying mishap in the next second. Xiao, Ling Han's right hand's 5 fingers loosened, and the 7 light arrows immediately shot towards the formation. The moment they were shot, the 7 light arrows shot in 7 different directions, as fast as flowing light. No one could catch the trajectory of the light arrows. This kind of speed was practically killing whoever was shot, because under normal circumstances, who would keep using origin power to protect themselves? Wang, 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 the arrows arrived, but did not directly hit the Imperial Palace. A curtain suddenly appeared in the sky, blocking the arrows, but this curtain of light was like it was made of porcelain. Countless cracks actually appeared on it, and it suddenly shattered. Ling Han revealed a sliver of a smile. Under his Eye of Truth, this great formation immediately became so weak that it could not withstand a single blow, and was directly destroyed by his 7 arrows. Of course, this was also because of the annihilating dragon star arrow's strength. Otherwise, even if he found a weak point, he might not be able to break through it. After all, this weak point was only a relatively weak point, and not something that any attack could blast open. However, the formation's eye was not destroyed. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth rolled in, beginning to reconstruct the formation. Let's go. Ling Han did not have the time to practice his archery here, and immediately brought Hunyou into the imperial city. At this time, even if the formation was reactivated, it would be useless. Ling Han had already entered the formation, and if he wanted to break through the formation, it would be countless times easier. He just had to destroy the formation's eye. What? He actually broke through the formation and came in. Impossible, this formation is something that even a spiritual infantier elite might not be able to break through. Everyone cried out in shock. This was really unbelievable. Ling Han was only in the flower blossom tier, so how could he possibly instantly break through the imperial city's defensive formation? Could it be that this guy's battle prowess was even more terrifying than a spiritual infantier elite? What could they do? Even the protective formation was helpless, so who else could stop Ling Han? Young friend, if you have anything to say, just say it to this old man. I believe that no matter how big the matter is, this old man can still make the decision. At this time, an old man appeared. He looked to be in his 70s or 80s, so old that he looked like he could close his eyes at any time, and there was actually a flame burning on top of his head. This was not a real flame, but the flame of martial arts. What did the appearance of the flame of martial arts signify? Forcibly boosting one's vitality, burning one's life force and martial intent as the price, allowing oneself to reach the best state in the later stages of one's life. This was something that couldn't be helped. After a martial artist entered an old age, their blood and chi would weaken, and their battle prowess would no longer be what it was in the past. Only by burning the flame of martial arts would one be able to battle to the extreme. But in this way, regardless of victory or defeat, one's vitality would be greatly damaged, and the lifespan that was already not much left in the first place would drop even further. It was even possible that one would directly die after a battle. Old Emperor. Everyone bowed down one after another, incomparably reverent. This was the emperor of the previous generation of Fire Country, and also the one and only flower blossom tier cultivator of Fire Country. He had forcibly advanced to this level by relying on the power of the nation, and only in Fire Country would he possess the lifespan of a flower blossom tier cultivator. Otherwise, once he left, with the fact that he had lived for close to 300 years, he would definitely immediately decay. In the desolate north, flower blossom tier cultivators were the divine tools that guarded the country and defended against foreign invaders. Ling Han was too strong. With a single move, he had broken through the Great Formation, forcing the old emperor to have no choice but to show himself. This was indeed the most dangerous time for Fire Country. I only have one request, and that is to stop excavating that ancient mine forever, Ling Han said. The old emperor looked hesitant. That ancient mine could give a spiritual pedestal tier cultivator hope of breaking through, a real hope of breaking through. What did this mean? Fire Country would have more than one flower blossom tier cultivator. Then, it would be possible for Fire Country to sweep over the other 8 nations, and unify the desolate north. More territory, more population, and stronger power of the nation. Then, Fire Country would also be able to produce more flower blossom tier cultivators. Even if the ancient mine was completely excavated, the power of the nation would not be emptied, and the foundation of Fire Country would be passed down through the ages. This was too important, so the old emperor was naturally hesitant. All right, this old man agrees to your request. After only an instant, the old emperor nodded in agreement. If he could not even pass this hurdle before him, what future would there be? Ling Han said calmly, I hope you are not doing it half-heartedly, or else. He drew out the demon birth sword, and with a slash, 19 flashes of sword chi shot out. Every flash of sword chi was covered with ancient characters. These were the bone patterns that he had obtained from the old vicious mongoose. They could increase one's attack power, and could practically be considered a mystical power. His sword slashed towards the skies, and a terrifying scene appeared. It was as if the skies were being torn apart, and a black void actually appeared. It was too terrifying. The might of this strike was so strong that it was impossible to fathom it. Everyone trembled. 19 flashes of sword chi, was this guy really human? 10 flashes of chi, and he was already a top-notch king tier, so what kind of concept was 19 flashes? In the flower blossom tier, he was definitely invincible. At this moment, the old emperor completely dispelled his naive idea of pretending to agree to Ling Han's request. He would first stall for time, and in the future, when 8 or 10 flower blossom tier warriors appeared, he would then fight Ling Han. What more 8 or 10, even 80 or 100 would be nothing more than a gift. I dare not. He lowered his stance to an extremely low level. Ling Han nodded, turned around and left. He wanted to properly interrogate Na Jiyan. Chapter 400. What is Tao? The source of heaven and earth, the true meaning of the world. Legend has it that the gods grasped the Tao of heaven and earth, invincible in the world, transcending life and death. Martial art, alchemy, and formations all pursued the source from different angles, searching for Tao. But as Small Tower said, Tao begets 1, 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, and 3 begets all things. Mortals were mediocre, and even when Ling Han reached heaven tier in his previous life, he only stayed at the level of all things, striving to trace back to the source and pursue 3. In martial art, he was still far from it, but in alchemy, he reached the peak stage of heaven tier and had 1 foot into God tier, qualified to come into contact with 3. But now, a small piece of black stone actually contained the source of chaos, reaching the level of 2. Then, if he could grasp the source of chaos in the black stone, wouldn't he be able to jump straight into God tier? Once Ling Han said so, Small Tower immediately shook its head and said, "Impossible, the source of chaos in this black stone is too little, and it's only a fragment of the enormous source of chaos. Even if you can completely grasp 1 fragment, it's still too far away from the source of chaos. However, I can absorb this bit of source of chaos and extract the source power, which can repair my body by 1 billionth. This was a lot of information. Ling Han was startled for a while, then blurted out, "You can extract the source power? Also, Black Tower is injured, and even the source power can only be repaired by 1 billionth. Small Tower shook lightly, and said, "I was severely injured, which was why I was struck down into this world, losing almost all my memories. Extracting the source power shouldn't be difficult, my instincts tell me I can do it, and this black stone is really too small. Being able to repair 1 billionth is already an optimistic guess." Ling Han opened his mouth wide. What kind of existence was Black Tower that it could only be repaired with source power? Then, could he wait until the day Black Tower completely recovered in this lifetime? However, he was only in spiritual ocean tier, and already obtained a small piece of black stone, which meant that his luck was nature-defying, and he might be able to repair Black Tower without breaking through to God tier. One should be more optimistic. Ling Han did not plan on handing the black stone over to Small Pagoda to refine for now. This chaotic intent could sharpen his own martial art intent, especially since he was currently stuck at 7 flashes of sword chi. Part of the reason was that his martial art intent was not strong enough. He exited the Black Tower and brought Hunyo to the core area of the Dark Demon Forest. It was extremely possible that there were more black stones there. This was because the Dark Devil Forest was famous for its demonic energy. The demonic beasts at the core were all bedeviled, bloodthirsty and terrifying. Previously, Ling Han didn't know the reason, but now that he thought about it, if there were black stones there, their long-term existence would definitely affect the environment, and thus the living beings there. Whether it was for the crimson-red chilling ice grass or the chaos origin of the black stone, Ling Han had to make this trip. A day later, another stockade appeared in front of them. This stronghold was much smaller than the previous one, but its defensive power had increased by a large margin. There were spiritual ocean tier martial artists patrolling all around with weapons in their hands, and their vigilance was extremely high. Ling Han thought about it and decided to settle down in this stronghold. He walked over, and was charged 5 origin crystals. Thankfully, probably because Hunyo was really too young, she actually didn't charge her entrance fee, saving Ling Han a small sum of money. This stronghold was also constructed with wooden walls and bamboo houses, but it was more simple. It couldn't be helped, because this was the 3rd ring of the Dark Devil Forest. The entire Dark Devil Forest was divided into 4 rings from the inside to the outside. The first ring was obviously the core area. Because of the great influence of demonic chi, no party could stay there. Normally, only flower blossom tier elites dared to enter, but they also came and went in a hurry, not daring to stay for long. Then, it was the second ring. This was the stronghold set up by Bloodlight Tower and Dark Demon Hall. It was also the stronghold at the front line, often suffering attacks from demonic beasts that came out of the core area. To enter there to rest and reorganize, one had to pay 10 origin crystals for each day of stay. Fiery sungrass was in this area, and the danger level was quite high because one might encounter flower blossom tier demonic beasts that came out of the core area. And where Ling Han was now was the 3rd ring. The nearby demonic beasts were quite terrifying, with spiritual pedestal tier existences. Even spiritual pedestal tier martial artists had to be careful, one careless move and they would be doomed eternally. He brought Hunyo to the restaurant. This was the best place to find out the latest news. Big news! Big news! Blood Light Tower changed owners. What, really? I just came out of the second ring, only 100 miles away from Blood Light Tower's headquarters. How could the news I heard with my own ears be fake? Strange, wasn't Blood Light Tower's master in his prime? Why did he abdicate? He didn't abdicate himself, he was defeated. Hey, Blood Light Tower's master is in the Flower Blossom tier, an almighty being on par with Heavenly Silkworm Court's master, Shirgu Palace master, and Wind Demon Hall's master, yet he was actually defeated. Exactly, it said that the person who defeated Blood Light Tower's master was a Grandmaster of Fists, able to burst forth with 10 flashes of fist chi. With just 19 consecutive punches, he beat Blood Light Tower's master to the ground, having no choice but to hand over his authority. Hiss, who was that person? He's too fierce. I don't know, that person is very mysterious, only calling himself Fist Emperor. Fist Emperor is too domineering. As Ling Han listened, he was also somewhat surprised. Blood Light Tower, one of the 4 great forces, was actually forced to change owners. This was truly a major event. He didn't know where this person who called himself Fist Emperor came from. Not only was he strong enough, but his will was also high enough. The titles of Emperor and Emperor couldn't be used carelessly. For example, in his previous life, only Sword Emperor and Setting Sun Saber Emperor were respectfully addressed as Emperor and Emperor, and he was also honored with the title of Alchemy Emperor because he reached supreme achievements in alchemy. This represented invincibility in a tier. Sword Emperor, invincible in sword arts, Saber Emperor, reigning supreme in saber arts, and he stood at the pinnacle of alchemy. Calling himself Fist Emperor, who knew how many experts of fists would come to challenge him, because if they tacitly acknowledged his title, it would be equivalent to acknowledging his position as number 1 in fists. How could those grandmasters of fists tolerate that? Ling Han stroked his chin. Should he also call himself some emperor and attract hatred? Just thinking about it was quite exciting. This news of yours isn't considered new, that's something from at least a month ago. On the side, someone was unwilling to have the limelight stolen, and immediately interrupted. Now, many figures on the prodigy roll have gathered in the Dark Demon Forest, and this is the most sensational matter. Why? This news aroused the curiosity of many people. After all, figures on the prodigy roll could become Flower Blossom tier or even Spiritual Infant tier elites in the future. With so many people gathered in the Dark Demon Forest, it could be called a grand event. I heard that in the core of the forest, there's a treasure that came into being. That person said, pretending to be mysterious. What treasure? Everyone asked in surprise. Chapter 401. What treasure? Everyone revealed a curious expression. Treasure. Just these 2 words were enough to make one's blood boil. And this was something that people on the prodigy roll were concerned about, so such a treasure was obviously extremely precious. That person chuckled, and seeing everyone's gazes focused on him, a strong sense of vanity instantly rose, and he said, I'm not sure about the specifics, I just heard it's a rock. Rock. Everyone was shocked. What was so good about a rock that it could attract so many people on the prodigy roll? Ling Han, however, was startled. Could it be for the black stone? It contained the source of chaos inside. No, he immediately shook his head inwardly. Even he couldn't refine and absorb this power in his last life, not to mention some spiritual ocean tier and spiritual pedestal tier warriors. Other things aside, even his heaven tier divine sense couldn't withstand the chaotic intent inside the black stone, and he had to rely on the black tower to suppress it. Others obviously didn't have the qualifications. Unless they were as strange as Hunyo. You're talking nonsense, what's so good about a rock? Someone mocked. It really is a rock, I didn't lie to you guys. That person hurriedly swore. Martial artists all cared about their face, and being doubted like this instantly made them anxious. However, most people didn't believe that there was anything good about a rock. That's right, it's indeed a rock, called Heavenly Luck Stone, someone said. Right, I remember, it's called Heavenly Luck Stone, the person from before said hurriedly. Everyone couldn't help but look towards the person who spoke of Heavenly Luck Stone. It was a slender man dressed in white, but he wore a straw hat on his head, so his appearance couldn't be seen clearly. However, judging from his previous words, this person should be quite young. By White-Robed Sword King, Shinzhong Cheng. Someone said with a trembling voice when he saw the treasured sword he placed on the table. White-Robed Sword King. North Region's Prodigy Role, ranked 29th. And the only one at the 9th layer of the Spiritual Ocean tier to squeeze into the top 40, absolutely nature-defying. Everyone cried out in surprise. Although Shinzhong Cheng's ranking wasn't at the top and hadn't even squeezed into the top 10, he was only at the 9th layer of the Spiritual Ocean tier, yet he was able to push 11 martial artists at the 1st layer of the Spiritual Pedestal tier to the back, and even the 30th ranked martial artist had 2 stars of battle prowess. Shinzhong Cheng's freakishness was evident. Even Ling Han nodded. If he did not use the Demon Birth Sword and Thunder Battle Armor, and merely relied on his own battle prowess, then with the help of the mysterious 3000, he would at most be able to kill a 2-star Spiritual Pedestal tier elite. However, he was now only at the 5th layer of the Spiritual Ocean tier, and there was still some distance from the 9th layer. When he and Shinzhong Cheng were at the same tier, their battle prowess would definitely not be limited to 2 stars of the Spiritual Pedestal tier, but 4 stars or even 5 stars was possible. On the other hand, could it be that Shinzhong Cheng had revealed all of his trump cards? Just like Ling Han, the Demon Birth Sword would only be used at the most crucial moment. Perhaps Shinzhong Cheng also had such a great killing weapon. No matter what, a person at the 9th layer of the Spiritual Ocean tier being able to battle a Spiritual Pedestal tier elite was indeed freakish. Moreover, Shinzhong Cheng was only 20 years old, and even Ling Han didn't dare to underestimate him. May I ask young Master Shen, what kind of treasure is the Heavenly Luck Stone? Someone asked boldly. Shinzhong Cheng's symbol was his treasured sword. A white string was tied to the scabbard, forming the shape of a butterfly, and he wore white all year round. However, ever since he ascended onto the prodigy role, there were more people who imitated his attire, so this person might not be the real White-Robed Sword King. However, Ling Han was certain that he was Shinzhong Cheng, because he felt the unique presence of an elite from the other's body, like an unsheathed sword showing off its edge. Heavenly Luck Stone, a gift from heaven and earth. Martial artists at and below the Spiritual Pedestal tier will refine it into their bodies, and when they break through to the next tier, the stone's essence will produce a miraculous effect, improving their physique in all aspects. Once they advance, their battle prowess will soar by 4 to 5 stars, Shinzhong Cheng said in a calm tone. Pooh! Everyone choked on their saliva. Normally, being able to surpass 1 or 2 stars of battle prowess was already extraordinary, and 3 or 4 stars was genius level, but the Heavenly Luck Stone could directly bestow 4 or 5 stars of battle prowess. What kind of concept was that? As expected of a rare treasure of heaven and earth, no wonder it attracted so many figures on the prodigy roll. Young Master Shen should also have come for the Heavenly Luck Stone, someone said. That's for sure. Young Master Shen is now at the 9th layer of the Spiritual Ocean tier, obviously suppressing his cultivation, planning to consolidate his cultivation before breaking through. With the Heavenly Luck Stone, plus young Master Shen's talent, he can have over 10 stars of battle prowess at the 1st layer of the Spiritual Pedestal tier. However, the Heavenly Luck Stone is so precious. Not to mention the figures on the prodigy roll, even those who have been famous for a long time will come. Even Flower Blossom tier and Spiritual Infant tier elites will appear to seize opportunities for their descendants. If these elites also appear, then the younger generation will definitely have no chance. Even if all the people on the prodigy roll were added together, it would be useless. Ling Han, however, thought, how did the news about the Heavenly Luck Stone spread out? Such a precious thing, everyone would hide it, right? How did it become like the whole world knew about it now? The answer was soon revealed. It turned out that 10 days ago, an exploration team entered the core area of the forest and accidentally discovered the Heavenly Luck Stone. However, there was a powerful beast overseeing nearby, and they couldn't seize it, so they decided to go back and gather people again before acting. However, this team was a motley crew that was put together temporarily. Someone became greedy, and it was 3 brothers of the same clan who poisoned and assassinated the others in the team. Except for one. He was poisoned, but he was also an expert in poisons, so he had a certain level of resistance to poison. Unexpectedly, he didn't die on the spot. He escaped into a stronghold, and before he died, he spread the news. Thus, everyone in the Dark Devil Forest knew about the Heavenly Luck Stone, but as for its exact location, because the poisoned person didn't have time to say it before dying, everyone only knew that it was in the core area of the forest. Because of this, the news only spread in the Dark Devil Forest, and the various large sects didn't receive the news yet. However, as time passed, it could be imagined that a large number of elites would definitely come. The Heavenly Luck Stone could create a nature-defying elite for the sect, worthy of the sect's old ancestor moving out. Ling Han shook his head. First, it was the crimson-red chilling ice grass, then the mysterious black stone, and now the Heavenly Luck Stone. Was he destined to have no peace on this trip? Shinzhong Cheng, I didn't think I'd meet you here, come out and spar. A voice came from outside the restaurant. Someone immediately poked his head out and exclaimed, it's Weaving Shadow Dual Swords Luoda. Weaving Shadow Dual Swords, ranked 42nd on the Prodigy roll. The difference is too big, no, that's only the ranking from a year ago. I heard that Luoda already advanced into the spiritual pedestal tier, and even defeated several famous experts in the second layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. No wonder he dared to challenge. Chapter 402. Shinzhong Cheng sat upright without moving, and said indifferently, I never spar with someone I've defeated. Shinzhong Cheng, you're scared, right? Luoda's voice floated over from outside. Shinzhong Cheng picked up his wine cup, took a small sip, and said, I hate people like you who don't have self-awareness, so if you force me to fight, I definitely won't be merciful. Haha, that's even better. I was just thinking about how much your strength improved, Luoda said, but his laughter was extremely gloomy, obviously very displeased. Shinzhong Cheng stood up, reached out to grab the long sword on the table, and strode out of the restaurant. Hong, the crowd instantly surged out. That was a battle between 2 people ranked near the top of the Prodigy roll, who wouldn't want to witness it? We'll go too, Ling Han said with a smile. Hunyo nodded, one hand grabbing onto the corner of Ling Han's clothes, while the other hand didn't forget to gnaw on the jerky. She left the restaurant with Ling Han, left the stronghold, and came to an empty space outside. At this time, Shinzhong Cheng was confronting a 24 or 25-year-old young man. That young man was tall and sturdy, probably taller than normal people by at least 2 heads, and standing there, Shinzhong Cheng instantly looked like a child. This person was obviously Luoda, but such a big and burly guy actually didn't choose brute force weapons like staves, axes, or hammers, but instead used swords. Moreover, they were 2 short swords, and in his hands, they looked like embroidery needles. How could it not be harmonious? However, no one laughed. Luoda was ranked 42nd on the Prodigy roll, and definitely didn't get there through jokes. Draw your swords. Luoda said loudly. If you can force me to draw my swords, I'll obviously draw them, Shinzhong Cheng said indifferently. These words were full of pretentiousness, but it made the eyes of the surrounding spectators shine with the light of infatuation. Arrogant Luoda attacked. The 2 short swords danced together, and the intent of martial art burst forth, forming streaks of white silk that entangled towards Shinzhong Cheng. Ling Han couldn't help but nod. Luoda was indeed in the spiritual pedestal tier and had even stabilized his tier, reaching the middle stage of the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. These threads were actually condensed from sword chi, but he had obviously cultivated a strange sword technique that could actually condense sword chi into threads and not disperse. It was indeed quite impressive. To be able to enter the Prodigy list, how could one be mediocre? Shinzhong Cheng used his fingers as a sword and moved his feet while waving his fingers to release sword chi. Sword chi, sword chi. Why was it called sword chi? It was because it needed to be shot out with a sword. It could increase the sharpness of a treasured sword. However, if it was shot out from a finger, the sharpness of the sword would be greatly reduced. Why was the fist chi unaffected? That was because the power of the fist lay in the power of the bombardment, not the effects of cutting, and cutting. Now that Shen Zhongcheng was using his fingers as a sword, the power of the sword chi was naturally much weaker. If the sword in his hand was still a 4th or 5th rank spirit tool, the effect would naturally be even lower. Everyone couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Shen Zhongcheng was truly skilled and daring. He was obviously weaker than Luo De by a whole tier, yet he still dared to be so arrogant, not even drawing his weapon. However, Shen Zhongcheng wasn't arrogant, but rather had real skills. His fingers moved continuously as if playing a zither. Xiao, 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 flashes of sword chi shot out, perfectly dispersing Luo Da's attack. The two were actually tied. However, Luo Da was a great realm higher than Shen Zhongcheng, and he even used weapons. The two short swords were obviously spirit tools, with vein-like patterns flashing on them. In a situation where he had such a big advantage, he could actually only fight to a draw with Shen Zhongcheng. In reality, he had already lost completely. Hunyo's eyes gradually lit up as she stared at Shen Zhongcheng's figure, revealing a battle-hungry expression. Ling Han was also a bit itchy. Who asked him to use a sword? As expected of the white-robed sword king, too strong, he could rival Luo De, who's in the 1st layer of the spiritual pedestal tier at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. If he advances into the spiritual pedestal tier, his battle prowess would probably soar to 9 stars, or even 10 stars. That's right, there's still 4 months' time, and Shen Zhongcheng can definitely advance into the spiritual pedestal tier. The year-end prodigy battle is good, there's going to be another freak. Everyone nodded, giving complete affirmation to Shen Zhongcheng's strength. Ah! Luo De roared. He couldn't bear such an ending. He'd obviously advanced into the spiritual pedestal tier, thinking that he could rely on the advantage of a whole tier to suppress this powerful opponent in front of him, but it was still to no avail. His eyes reddened, and he decided to use some trump cards. He definitely couldn't lose in public. Ha 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 ha, is this the so-called elite of the North Region's prodigy role? A youngster flew over. Hong, the presence of the spiritual pedestal tier overflowed without reservation, instantly suppressing everyone to the point that they couldn't breathe. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked. This youngster was only 24 or 25, but was shockingly in the high tier of the spiritual pedestal tier. His battle prowess was definitely shocking, yet no one recognized his identity. This kind of genius should be a well-known figure on the prodigy roll. Shen Zhongcheng and Luo De immediately stopped fighting, and both walked towards that youngster. You really disappoint me, unbelievably weak. That youngster shook his head, his face full of disdain. With trash like you, you have the nerve to be ranked on some prodigy roll. I'll really laugh my teeth off. And who are you? Luo De said angrily. This guy was equivalent to looking down on all the 100 people on the prodigy roll. That youngster leaped, his left hand reaching out to press towards Luo De, while his right hand punched towards Shen Zhongcheng, actually challenging 2 heroes on the prodigy roll at the same time. Luo De immediately swung his sword, and Shen Zhongcheng hesitated slightly. With a chong, his sword was unsheathed. Shwa, 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 instantly, 7 flashes of sword chi shot out, heading towards that youngster. Pang, pang. With 2 muffled sounds, Luo De and Shen Zhongcheng were both pushed back at the same time, blood seeping from the corners of their mouths. They actually both suffered a loss from this blow. Hiss, everyone couldn't help but be shocked. 1 against 2, battling 2 great prodigies, not only winning completely, but also wounding 2 of them, this strength was truly shocking. Although a high-level spiritual pedestal tier cultivator should have such a performance, this youngster was only 24 or 25 years old, so it could be said to be very fair. No wonder he dared to be so arrogant, he was indeed freakish. Who exactly are you? Luo De exclaimed. Shen Zhongcheng took off his bamboo hat, revealing an ordinary face, but his eyes shone like stars, causing others to stare uncontrollably. unable to look away. His fighting spirit soared to the skies, and his sword was raised horizontally, emitting a mysterious aura. Ling Han shook his head slightly. Tier was a shortcoming. If Shen Zhongcheng advanced into the spiritual pedestal tier, he would have the right to fight that youngster, but not now. That youngster was in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and from his attack just now, his battle prowess should be around 12 or 13 stars, not very freakish. However, it was more than enough to crush spiritual ocean tier and 1st layer spiritual pedestal tier cultivators. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 403. There were only over 1,000 soldiers in the army, but they were all at least in the spiritual pedestal tier, and there was only one carriage in the army. It was a carriage pulled by 2 seahorses, and the walls of the carriage were painted with ancient patterns. There were also many holes pierced by weapons, but this did not affect the grandeur of the carriage, and instead made it look even more ancient and dignified. When Ling Han's eyes looked over, his mind instantly went blank. He saw a large hand appear out of thin air, grabbing towards him. This large hand was extremely terrifying, as if even if the sky collapsed, he could still hold it up with a light lift. But upon closer inspection, this was actually a female's hand. The skin was snow-white and delicate, almost perfect. Too powerful. Ling Han did not have a second thought, and directly brought Hun Yo into the Black Tower. His heart was thumping madly. Although it was only for an instant, it was the most dangerous moment he had ever been in this life. If he had been just a little bit slower, he would definitely have been caught by that large hand, and there would definitely be no way for him to enter into the Black Tower again. High-level Heaven tier, or even Shattering Void tier. Ling Han shook his head. The other party's strength was so strong that it could not be estimated. He, too, only had a sliver of divine sense of the Heaven tier. Perhaps he could see through the cultivation of ordinary Heaven tier elites, but high-level Heaven tier elites were like a dense fog. Moreover, the Sea race had Shattering Void tier elites. There was one thing that could be confirmed, and that was that the elite in the carriage could not possibly be Xian Kongming. He was only in the deity transformation tier. A surprised sound came from inside the carriage. "My lord, is there something wrong?" a Sea race warrior immediately asked. "A very interesting flea," the person in the carriage said. Her voice was coquettish, and it was as if she possessed endless charm. The eyes of that Sea race warrior wandered, as if he wanted to find the flea that the princess spoke of. However, how could he possibly discover the Black Tower? Naturally, his efforts were in vain. "Teleported away," the person in the carriage said. Then, she immediately murmured softly, "Did he really teleport away? I don't seem to have sensed any spatial fluctuations, but if he did not teleport, how could he possibly disappear so suddenly?" The wheels of the carriage rolled, and this army continued to advance towards the imperial capital. Only when this army had completely disappeared did Ling Han and Hun Yo emerge from the Black Tower. That scared Nyo to death. "That woman is so annoying," Hun Yo said, patting her chest. Ling Han nodded. That was a great elite of the Sea race, and she was unbelievably strong. Could it be that Na Ziyen had given himself away? Otherwise, after he had cursed Xian Kongming to death, everything should have come to an end. Then why would an army of the Sea race suddenly appear, and why would there be an unbelievably strong woman? She was suspected to be a great elite of the high-level Heaven tier, or even the Shattering Void tier. Who could stop her from doing as she pleased in a place like the North region? Ling Han dragged Na Ziyen out, and told him everything that had happened just now. Then, he asked, "Who is that woman? Also, who else did you tell about this matter?" Na Ziyen was already crying. How could he dare to tell anyone such a secret? If the Sea race found out that he had participated in the matter of cursing Xian Kongming to death, then wouldn't he be chopped into 8 pieces? He said in a trembling voice, that should be the 7th princess of the royal family, Lady Helian Sun Shua. What cultivation level is she at? Ling Han asked. It is said that she is in the Heaven tier. Na Ziyen thought for a moment, then said with certainty, she should be in the Heaven tier. The seventh princess is the most outstanding genius of the Hellion royal family, but she has yet to advance into the Shattering Void tier. Ling Han had heard him mention before that there were three great royal families in the North Sea: Hellion, Xianyu, and Wenren. They all had great elites of the Shattering Void tier overseeing them, and were equivalent to a great sect in the middle state. Whether Hellion Sun Shui was in the Shattering Void tier or not, even if she was only in the Heaven tier, she would still be able to sweep through the North region. Moreover, Ling Han felt that she was far stronger than he had been in his last life. As for whether she could be on par with the Sword Emperor and the others, that was hard to judge, because he had not even seen her once. Thinking about it, she should have gone for the Vial of Curses. Otherwise, the timing would not be so coincidental. But since Na Zhiyan had not divulged the secret, how did she know about this? Could it be that Xian Kongming had divulged the secret before his death? Ling Han thought for a moment, and once again knocked Na Zhiyan unconscious before tossing him into the Black Tower. Then, he, too, headed towards the Imperial City. He took a detour and overtook the army of the Sea Race, arriving at the Imperial City ahead of time. To be honest, the advance speed of this army was really not very fast. But no matter how slow it was, after another 2 days, the Sea Race still arrived at the outskirts of the Imperial City. Everyone in the Fire Country acted as if they were facing a great enemy. On the city walls, everyone had their swords drawn and arrows nocked. A great battle was about to break out at any moment. However, in front of an army where even the weakest was in the spiritual pedestal tier, they really could not withstand a single blow. This should not be considered a great army, and could only be considered Hellion Sun Shui's guards. After all, there were too few of them. I don't care who obtained that thing, immediately hand it over. Otherwise, 3 days later, I will cause a furious wave that will drown the whole desolate north. From within the carriage, Hellion Sun Shui's pleasant yet cold voice was heard. She released a sliver of her aura, and instantly, the pressure was so great that even the heaven and earth lost their color. Pa, 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 the weapons in everyone's hands fell to the ground. Aside from those who possessed the aptitude of a ruler among martial artists, everyone else knelt on the ground. Everyone was shocked. They had not even fought, and it was already like this. The strength of the other party was practically hair-raising. What to do? They had absolutely no idea what that thing the other party spoke of was, so how could they hand it over? Speaking of which, they were really unlucky. Just a few days ago, someone had charged into the imperial palace and forced them to sign an oath of allegiance, which was extremely humiliating. Now, someone had charged into the imperial city and threatened them. Yet, they did not have the slightest bit of temper. Though the woman in the carriage did not reveal her face, no one dared to doubt her words. She only released a little bit of her aura, and it was enough to let everyone know that this was definitely not a joke. She had this kind of strength, and at the same time, she would do so. Ling Han frowned. Now, he was completely sure that what she wanted was the Vial of Curses. After a slight hesitation, he allowed Hunyo to enter the Black Tower first, and then ascended the city walls. "Milord! Milord! Milord!" When it was Ling Han's turn, everyone knelt down one after another as if they had met their savior. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, "Don't count on me. Now, even 10,000 of me added together would not be a match for a single finger of hers." Hearing Ling Han say this, everyone looked disappointed. Even Ling Han was not a match for her, so what could they do? Ling Han looked into the distance, and said loudly, "We can talk, but if you make a move against me again, I will leave immediately, and I guarantee that you will never find me again." "Impudent! You dare speak to our master like this?" The warriors of the Sea Race all shouted one after another. In their hearts, Hellion Sun Shui was a godlike existence, and could not tolerate the slightest bit of blasphemy. A mere human actually wanted to have a talk with their master? Wishful thinking. Yet a voice was heard from within the carriage and said, "Then let's talk." Obviously, after Ling Han had slipped away once, Hellion Sun Shui at least acknowledged Ling Han's ability to escape. Otherwise, she would have directly captured him for interrogation. How could he have the right to talk? Chapter 404. Ling Han's eyes narrowed. The move that the young man had used just now was the mysterious 3000. However, his opponent had advanced into the flower blossom tier, so a casual attack had supreme might, instantly killing 2 elites in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. As a result, it was impossible to judge the opponent's attainments in the mysterious 3000 from this attack alone. This was also the best demonstration of a swordsman's strength in the way of the sword. The mysterious 3000 was propelled by sword chi. The more sword chi one cultivated, the more sword light one could unleash, and the more powerful it would be. In the sky, the young man said indifferently, "Now, has anyone answered my question?" I'll talk. Fairy Zhu should have gone into the depths of the forest. The first reason is to find the scarlet-red chilling ice grass. The second reason is to fight for the heavenly luck stone, someone said with a trembling voice. The young man revealed a smile, and said, "Heavenly luck stone? Xian Er is still only in the spiritual pedestal tier. If she refines a piece of heavenly luck stone and breaks through to the flower blossom tier in the future, it will be greatly beneficial to her." He paused for a moment, and then said, "Ji Ming, do you think Xian will be very happy if I take the heavenly luck stone and give it to her?" Tong Ji Ming revealed a hint of envy. Heavenly luck stone was the most precious treasure for martial artists under the flower blossom tier. He was now at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and if he could fuse with a piece of heavenly luck stone, TSK. However, he immediately put away his envy and said respectfully, "Fairy Zhu will definitely be very happy." Ha ha ha. The young man laughed. "Alright, then I'll make an exception and play with the people here." After he finished speaking, he turned around and walked away. Each step he took was a sword diagram, and it was resplendent like a flower. Tong Ji Ming sneered at the crowd and hurriedly followed. Although he couldn't fly, a spiritual pedestal tier warrior's speed wasn't slow either. He continuously passed through the treetops and chased after the young man. Only then did everyone heave a sigh of relief. Many of them even sat on the ground, drenched in sweat. But not everyone was so shocked by the young man that they lost their fighting spirit. Shen Zhongcheng stared at the place where the young man disappeared, his right hand tightly gripping his sword, revealing endless fighting spirit. Ling Han was no exception. His heart was burning with fighting spirit. This young man was probably comparable to the Sword Emperor back then. Regrettably, in his previous life, he had focused on alchemy and only pursued the realm of martial art. He had never competed with the 6 emperors of the heaven tier. But in this life, he could make up for his regrets. Regardless of whether it was his talent or his comprehension of the way of the sword, that young man was extremely astonishing. He was just like the second Sword Emperor. To compete with such a prodigy, Ling Han was full of fighting spirit. "I know who that person is," someone suddenly exclaimed. "I've heard in the past that an elite from the Heaven's Sword sect fell in love with Fairy Zhu at first sight when he came to the northern region to train. He even invited her to the Heaven's Sword sect. It's this person. Number 2 sword in the world, Yao Huiyu." As soon as his words fell, cries of surprise were instantly heard. What kind of person was this? He actually dared to claim to be the second strongest swordsman in the world. Was he not afraid of losing his tongue? Yao Huiyu was indeed very powerful. At his age, there was practically no one in the flower blossom tier that could compare to him, but to claim to be the second strongest in the world was really shameless. There were so many swordsmen in the world. Could it be that swordsmen in the spirit realm and deity transformation realm were inferior to him? I heard that Yao Huiyu originally wanted to call himself the number 1 swordsman under the heavens, but in order to express his respect to those old seniors of the Heavenly Sword sect, he retreated and called himself second. Hiss, the second strongest in the world, that's too modest. However, he's already in the flower blossom tier in his 20s. In his age group, the second strongest in the world should be fully deserving of the title. Heavens, is there really such a big gap between the level of martial art in our northern region and the middle state? It's said that the middle state is the holy land of martial art, and it's indeed true. Everyone sighed ruefully. In the past, they were foolish and arrogant, but when they saw true elites and geniuses, only then did they realize that the world was much larger than they imagined. However, 2 elites in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier were killed, and this stronghold was no longer safe. Encountering an attack from a spiritual pedestal tier beast, it was extremely possible that it would be instantly destroyed. Thus, everyone set out on their way, either to continue gathering herbs and hunting beasts, or to head to other strongholds. Ling Han, too, set out towards the core area of the forest. He couldn't help but sigh ruefully. Previously, he felt that his cultivation was fast enough, but compared to Yao Huiyu, although his speed wasn't slow, it wasn't that much faster. After all, for a great sect with 10,000 years of history like the Heaven Sword sect, the abundant cultivation resources couldn't be compared to normal forces. Concentrated on a few genius disciples, then Yao Huiyu and the others' cultivation naturally wouldn't be slower than Ling Han's. However, after breaking through to the flower blossom tier, there were pitifully few spirit herbs above tier 6. Even an ancient great sect like the Heaven Sword sect would feel that they were poor, and couldn't be faster in the cultivation of disciples. And Ling Han didn't need to feel inferior. How long had it been since he started cultivating? It was only a little over a year, and he soared from the 2nd layer of body refining tier to the 4th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Could such a cultivation speed be compared to Yao Huiyu back then? After all, he never needed to worry about his comprehension of cultivation. However, now that Yao Huiyi, Ao Feng, and the others have appeared, the difficulty of getting the crimson red chilling ice grass and the heavenly luck stone has increased considerably. Ling Han stroked his chin. He was determined to get these 2 things, but from now on, there were many difficulties. Ling Han. Hunyo suddenly ran towards a direction. Ling Han followed and saw that Hunyo stopped beside a plant. This plant was entirely crimson red, as if it was burning. Fiery sun grass. Ling Han was surprised. He really didn't mean to. He didn't come to the dark demon forest for the fiery sun grass, but he actually ran into it while walking. What kind of luck was this? No, it wasn't that his luck was good, but that Hunyo seemed to have the ability to find medicinal ingredients. This wasn't bad, and his chances of getting the crimson red chilling ice grass increased a bit. As long as he got it first, he'd directly hide in the Black Tower. Who cares what sword technique you have in the world? Nothing would matter. Since he ran into it, there was naturally no reason for him to miss it. Ling Han dug up the fiery sun grass along with its roots, planning to plant it in the Black Tower. This kind of spirit medicine needed to grow for 100 years before it would bloom and bear seeds, but in the Black Tower, this process could be completed in a month. Thus, he plucked a stalk of fiery sun grass, which meant that in a few months, this kind of spirit medicine would be as plentiful as cabbages. If I really have to return to the Winter Moon sect, I can also report back, Ling Han said with a smile, but his whole body immediately stood on end, feeling a strong sense of danger. As expected of the person who destroyed my Sea Breeze City's stronghold, your senses are really shockingly sharp. An aged voice came from behind him, like the sound of metal rubbing against each other, making one feel so uncomfortable that they wanted to cover their ears. Ling Han slowly turned around, only to see a skinny old man standing silently behind him, leaning on a red walking stick. His back was bent, and he looked old and decrepit. Elder Jiu Yun, right? He revealed a smile. Do you flower blossom tier warriors all have the habit of acting like ghosts? Appearing behind others without a sound, aren't you afraid of scaring them? Chapter 405. Youngster, you're really daring. This old man was Elder Nine Clouds. He'd been tracking Ling Han's whereabouts, and not long ago, he chased to Extreme Yang City, but found out that Ling Han went to the Dark Devil Forest, so he chased again. Thankfully, he finally found him. Your face. Elder Nine Clouds stared at Ling Han, and soon revealed an angry expression. So, in the Fallen Moon Gorge, the one who foiled our sect's great plan was also you. Ling Han clapped his hands, and said, "Correct, but there's no reward." "Old man, what method did you guys use to find me?" "Hung, you have entered into the great tomb, and have been tainted by the chi of dead spirits. It will not disappear within half a year, and anyone who cultivates corpse chi would be able to easily find you." Elder Nine Clouds did not leave Ling Han hanging, and spoke directly. Before he came, Ling Han was already a corpse soldier, so he naturally didn't mind saying a few more words. Flower blossom tier against spiritual ocean tier, this was absolute suppression. So that's how it is. Ling Han came to a sudden realization. No wonder Duan Jingji could always catch up to him, and now he was targeted by an old monster. "Hand over that spatial spirit tool that can accommodate living beings, and I can be gentler when I strike, so that you die more complete," Elder Nine Clouds said indifferently. Ling Han's mind spun quickly. How did this old man know that he had a spatial spirit tool that could accommodate living beings? He'd only used it in front of Duan Jingji, and the latter was already dead. Could it be? So cruel, even refining your own people into corpse soldiers, he immediately said. "Gagaga, dying can still contribute to the sect, shouldn't it?" Elder Nine Clouds said with a smile. "Don't play any tricks in front of me. I've already lived for almost 200 years, and no small tricks can escape my eyes." Ling Han first put Hunyo into the Black Tower to resolve any worries. As expected. Even if Elder Nine Clouds saw this scene in Duan Jingji's memories, he was still very shocked. Such a treasure was really too rare. If this spatial spirit tool's capacity was large enough, then for the Thousand Corpse sect, it would be a supreme secret treasure, even surpassing a level 10 spirit tool. "Don't get excited. It has nothing to do with you." Ling Han scoffed. "Young man, you can't escape. As long as you move, this old man will immediately move to stop you. With this old man's flower blossom tier strength, this is as easy as turning over my hand. So don't have any delusions. Quickly hand over the spirit artifact," snorted Elder Nine Clouds. "To hell with your mother." Ling Han cursed. He drew the demon birth sword and slashed out. Shou, sword chi was like a dragon. Eh! Elder Nine Clouds' eyes suddenly lit up. What rank of spirit artifact is this? Why does even this old man feel a trace of fear? "This is the dog-slaying sword," Ling Han said with a smile. "Brat, you dare to make fun of me." Elder Nine Clouds was enraged and no longer had any patience. He extended his palm towards Ling Han. "Didn't you want the spirit artifact? Come and get it." Ling Han laughed loudly and entered the Black Tower. Hong, Elder Nine Clouds' palm instantly slapped empty air. How is this possible? Elder Nine Clouds' eyes widened. To enter the spatial spirit artifact, there was definitely a process of a flash, and with his flower blossom tier strength, he could completely grab onto Ling Han in that instant. This was like putting an item into a spatial ring. With flower blossom tier strength, he could completely rob it. Elder Nine Clouds obviously had experience, which was why he had such confidence. But reality slapped him hard in the face. Come, this spirit artifact's preciousness is even above this old man's expectations. If my sect obtains it, it would definitely benefit endlessly. However, how to get this treasure has also become difficult. However, a spirit artifact can't fly away without any reason. This old man will completely refine the surrounding area, and I don't believe I can't refine this treasure. The old man immediately put it into action. He dug 3 feet into the ground, and then refined it with supreme mystical power. The intent of martial art rose and could easily annihilate the soil, turning it into fine particles invisible to the naked eye. However, to his disappointment, he refined the nearby soil into fine dust, but still didn't find anything suspicious. In the Black Tower, Small Tower trembled lightly in disdain, and said, "A mere flower blossom tier cultivator wants to find mustard seed particles, truly wishful thinking." Ling Han was curious, and asked, "Then what kind of elite cultivator would be able to find it?" "At least in this realm, no one can do it," Small Tower said with absolute certainty. Ling Han nodded, and recalled that small tower once said that if the Black Tower unleashed its full power, it could destroy the entire vast lands. How could such a kick-ass treasure be discovered by shattering void-tier cultivators? Since he was idle, he took out the black stone and tempered his divine sense. Chaotic thoughts arose one after another, and Ling Han firmly guarded his heart, resisting and improving the strength of his divine sense. When Ling Han exhausted the power of his divine sense, he felt that his divine sense's strength had an obvious increase. Although he was extremely tired now, it was filled with tenacity and became even firmer. Sensing again, Elder Nine Clouds was nowhere to be seen. He was probably hiding somewhere, waiting for him to show up on his own. Ling Han smiled, and first had a big meal with Hunyo before leaving the Black Tower. The place was actually several dozen miles away from where he was previously. The Black Tower turned into dust and moved with the wind, so it naturally left its original spot, Small Tower said. Ling Han nodded. Originally, the Black Tower wouldn't have drifted around randomly. Who asked Elder Nine Clouds to dig 3 feet into the ground? Amidst the flying dust, the Black Tower naturally danced with the wind, and left its original spot far away. Thinking about it, Elder Nine Clouds should still be standing guard at his original spot, watching with full concentration. Ha, good luck. Ling Han said inwardly, and swaggered off. Another day passed, and he arrived at the second ring of the forest. This was the last place with a stronghold. Further ahead was the core area of the forest, where terrifying demonic chi flourished and affected the creatures in the forest, making them all bloodthirsty and violent. Even if martial artists stayed here for a long time, their temperament would change greatly, and they would become monsters that only knew how to kill. Ling Han didn't rest here, and instead directly advanced, entering the final area. He was extremely careful. From here onwards, flower blossom tier beasts would appear, which wasn't a joke. Not long after advancing, he encountered the attacks of 3 beasts. One was in the spiritual pedestal tier, and the other 2 were in the spiritual ocean tier, yet they were completely fearless, attacking Ling Han and Hunyo. Ling Han used some tricks to kill the spiritual pedestal tier beast, then captured a spiritual ocean tier beast alive. After knocking it out, he brought it into the Black Tower and carefully studied it. The results surprised him. He didn't discover the existence of anything similar to demonic chi. These beasts were probably imperceptibly influenced by the Black Stone's chaotic will, becoming instinctively bloodthirsty and murderous. In other words, the creatures here were all lunatics. Chapter 406. Ling Han exited the Black Tower and walked in the forest. Step by step, he felt a chaotic will was affecting him, imperceptibly. If he didn't have the divine sense of heaven tier, and because of his preconceived notions, he might not have discovered it. He opened the Eye of Truth and saw black demonic chi emerging from the ground everywhere, strand by strand, disappearing thousands of meters above the forest. This demonic chi was very weak, far from the level that Azura Demon Emperor used to control him, but it won in quantity, enveloping the entire core area of the forest. This demonic chi wouldn't control people, but it would greatly change the temperament of living creatures. What did Black Stone and Azura Demon Emperor have to do with each other? Logically, Azura Demon Emperor had been suppressed for tens of thousands of years, but he hadn't heard of the Dark Demon Forest in his previous life, so it was only formed about 10,000 years ago, so the two shouldn't be related. But this might not be certain. What if the Black Stone also appeared in the vast lands tens of thousands of years ago and was buried deep underground, so no demonic chi came to the surface? But with the changes in the landscape of the mountains and rivers, it was completely possible that the Black Stone came to the surface from deep underground, so there would be a delay of tens of thousands of years. His understanding of this world was still very, very little. Ling Han put away the Eye of Truth. The Black Stone had the chaos source that could repair the Black Tower, so he had to get it. After advancing for a while more, he suddenly felt a wave of heat assaulting him, followed closely by a wave of oppressive coldness that almost froze his bones. Wang, the Thunder Battle Armor was instantly activated, forming a barrier around his body. Cold and heat intertwined. Found it. He hurriedly leaped up. Show. After a few ups and downs, a strange scene appeared in front of him. This was an empty space with a circumference of 30 meters, forming an absolute circle. Half of the ground was blazing red, and every stone was burning red, while the other half was frozen in ice. There was no middle zone to speak of, and the two sides were clearly opposed. In the center of this area was a protruding stone, about half a meter tall. The stone was milky white, without a speck of dust, and on this stone grew a strange-looking plant. It was 2 feet tall. The bottom half was scarlet like agate, but the top half was sparkling and translucent like ice. There were only 2 leaves, one at the bottom, scarlet like fire, and the other at the top, like an ice sculpture. Red rainbow chilling ice grass. Ling Han recognized it at a glance and was instantly overjoyed. He didn't expect things to go so smoothly, and he found the crimson-red chilling ice grass so quickly. He hurriedly walked forward, but he had only taken a few steps when he felt a terrifying heat wave assaulting him. Even the thunder battle armor could not withstand it. Moreover, he also felt a strong sense of dizziness. Poisonous. He hurriedly retreated, and retrieved a golden flower of the stone from the black tower, which he swallowed. This was a top-grade antidote. After a while, the dizziness disappeared, and he circled to the other side, wanting to enter the land of frost. However, just like before, his blood began to freeze after taking a few steps, and white frost patterns appeared on his skin, making him feel extremely disgusted. It was poisonous again, but this time, it was cold poison. Ling Han took out another golden flower of the stone and swallowed it, retreating to a safe distance. Cold and heat should be balanced, or else they wouldn't form a symmetrical circle, and one side would definitely be stronger. Thus, he couldn't break through from the fiery end, and obviously couldn't enter from the cold end either. No wonder this spirit grass could exist for so long, and he couldn't even approach it, let alone pluck it. With the thunder battle armor's defensive effect, he could at least withstand the cold and heat of spiritual pedestal tier, but if it was flower blossom tier, then there was nothing he could do. It wasn't that the thunder battle armor was weak, but his tier was too low, unable to unleash the treasured armor's power. Flower blossom tier probably couldn't withstand such cold and heat, which allowed this spirit grass to exist until now. Ling Han thought, if I use the Black Tower's power boost, then I can reach the 5th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and activate the thunder battle armor, which should reach the defense of late-stage flower blossom tier. However, is this defense enough? He hesitated because there was only one chance for the Black Tower's power boost. Although the later the better, for his father, he obviously didn't mind using it now, provided that he could obtain this spirit grass. And, someone's coming. He was slightly startled, sensing 2 presences quickly approaching, one of which was extremely powerful. 2 figures appeared one after the other. The one in the lead was covered in divine light that turned into sharp swords, as if they could tear apart heaven and earth, extremely terrifying. The second sword in the world, Yao Huiyu. Behind him was Tong Jiming. His face was filled with humility, but when his eyes swept over Ling Han, an arrogant expression immediately appeared on his face, and he said, "You've seen my master, why don't you quickly kneel down and pay your respects?" Ling Han sneered, and said, "I don't have a body full of lowly bones like you, easily getting weak in the knees, impudence." Tong Jiming glared. This youngster was too arrogant, only at the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Wait, this youngster was at most 17 or 18 years old, and already at the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Even in the middle state, he wouldn't be considered weak. Strange, North region could actually cultivate such a genius, Jiming. Yao Huiyu extended a hand to stop him, looking at Ling Han with interest, and said, "I like arrogant people, but they have to have the confidence to be arrogant. You're not bad, when I was your age, I had about the same cultivation level." "Master is modest," Tong Jiming hurriedly said. Master was already at the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier when he was 17, and then spent a year to solidify his cultivation, becoming invincible in the spiritual ocean tier. Yao Huiyu only smiled faintly, and said to Ling Han, "Youngster, work hard on your cultivation. I hope that one day, you'll be qualified to challenge me." Master! Tong Jiming exclaimed, not expecting Yao Huiyu to think so highly of Ling Han. I have a feeling that you might become my great enemy in the future, Yao Huiyu said. Tong Jiming was even more shocked. This evaluation was too high, wasn't it? Since that was the case, why didn't he get rid of Ling Han earlier? I look forward to your challenge. Yao Huiyu said, extremely domineering. This guy really resembled a sword emperor, arrogant yet confident, and unafraid of any challenge. Ling Han laughed and said, then wait for me for 2 years, 2 years. Tong Jiming almost fainted. 2 years and you want to catch up to Yao Huiyu in cultivation level? You must be dreaming. Ha 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 ha, interesting, to actually meet someone even more arrogant than me. However, I don't have that much patience. I won't kill you this time, but the next time I meet you, I'll definitely take your life. Yao Huiyu laughed loudly. I definitely won't disappoint you, Ling Han said faintly, not caring in the slightest. Chapter 407. Bringing the 2 girls, one big and one small, with him, Ling Han headed towards the extreme Yang city. Hun Yo and Helian Sun Shui were natural enemies. The 2 of them fought for food, and also fought to stick to Ling Han. And Hun Yo had finally met her match, because Helian Sun Shui's appetite was actually not inferior to hers. Furthermore, she was born with great strength, and could always occupy an advantageous position. Ling Han interrogated Na Ji Yen again, and found out that the Helian royal family had the bloodline of the true dragon. The royal family of the Central Sea had the purest bloodline of the true dragon. Every generation of the Sea Emperor was revered by the 4 seas, fully deserving of the title of ruler. And the royal family of the 4 seas were not simple either. They also had the bloodline of the true dragon, but in terms of purity, they were slightly inferior. No wonder. Ling Han nodded. He had cultivated the 9 dragons tyrant body art, and after mastering it, he would possess the power of 9 true dragons. Why did he have to compare it with true dragons? That was because true dragons were the divine beasts with the strongest physical strength. Helian Sun Shui had the bloodline of the true dragon, and even if it was not pure, the brute strength of her physical body was definitely terrifying. Hun Yo was a freak, but the difference in cultivation level was too great, after all, so it was normal that she was no match for her. After all, Ling Han had cultivated the 9 dragons tyrant body art, so there was nothing he could do about it. At present, Helian Sun Shui was like a blank piece of paper that could be written at will. Ling Han tried his best to let her accept happy things. Even if she was fooling around with Hun Yo, that was also a kind of fun, and not a battle to the death between enemies. In comparison, Hun Yo was more like an adult. She never cried or made a fuss, but Helian Sun Shui cried and made a fuss. She obviously possessed terrifying brute strength, yet she would frequently widen her eyes in grievance, looking like she was about to cry. She had become addicted to acting cute. They passed through the Fallen Moon Gorge and entered into the North region. With their speed, they naturally did not need a few months to reach the extreme Yang city. It was only 10 days, and they had returned to this ancient city. Previously, they had been hurrying on their way. Though they had passed by a great many cities on their way, they had only passed by and not entered. Thus, after entering the city, Helian Sun Shui immediately became excited, walking here and stopping there. Take away the cotton candy. Take away the sugar man. Take away the childhood sweetheart. Ling Han could only continue to pay for her from behind. This Hainyo had gone a bit crazy from playing, laughing happily as she ate. Childish. Hunyo said disdainfully, but forgot that she, too, was holding a sugar man in her hand, and was currently licking it happily. Where did this little girl come from, so pretty? Helian Sun Shui was like a fairy, beautiful and filled with an exotic charm. Naturally, she was especially eye-catching, and very soon, she was targeted by others. That was a spoiled brat, staring lecherously at Helian Sun Shui's pretty face, almost drooling. However, when his gaze shifted downwards, wanting to land on Helian Sun Shui's mound of nostalgia, he was startled, and hurriedly shifted his gaze downwards again. Too bad, she was flat-chested. Hellion Sun Shui tilted her head to look at him, and asked a bit confusedly, "Why are you blocking my way?" The spoiled brat laughed mischievously, and said, "Little girl, come back with me, let's have some fun." He was obviously used to being unbridled. With a wave of his hand, he said, "Bring her back for me." "Yes, young master." Immediately, 4 strong servants pounced out from behind him, all of them like wolves and tigers. Hellion Sun Shui screamed in fright, and hurriedly fled back to Ling Han's side. With her speed, there really weren't many people who could catch up to her. Moreover, so what if they caught up to her? Being rammed by her brute force, Ling Han's bones would probably be broken. She obviously had terrifying strength, yet deliberately pretended to be weak. Wasn't she afraid of being struck by lightning? Ling Han ridiculed internally, and said to Hellion Sun Shui, "Trash like this is called taking advantage of their power to bully others. Hai Nyo, don't you think this kind of person is detestable?" Hellion Sun Shui hurriedly nodded, patted her chest, and said with lingering fear, "Damn it, scared me to death." "So, we can't be people like this, right?" Ling Han guided patiently. "Right, we can't be people like this." Hellion Sun Shui nodded. "However, we can't be bullied by this kind of trash either. Remember, we can't provoke others on our own accord, that's not right. But if others provoke us, we can't be lenient either. When it's time to fight back, we have to fight back. We're not punching bags, right?" Ling Han continued. This speech was too long, and Hellion Sun Shui was a little confused, but she still nodded habitually, and said, "Right. Who the fuck do you think you are, daring to meddle in this young master's business?" The spoilt young master was displeased. Did these 2 people treat him as if he didn't exist, and actually began to talk so condescendingly? He waved his hand, and said, "Cripple this man, then bring the woman back to the residence." "Yes, young master." The 4 servants pounced over again. Ling Han flicked his finger, and a burst of qi turned into 4 wisps, which respectively struck the foreheads of the 4 servants. Instantly, piu, 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 a bloody hole appeared on the foreheads of the 4 people, and they collapsed onto the ground with a loud bang. You're so daring, even daring to touch a member of my Zhang clan." The spoilt young master shouted angrily, raising his brows in shock and fear. "Who knows you?" Ling Han flicked his finger again, and this spoilt young master also followed in the footsteps of the 4 servants. A bloody hole appeared on his forehead, and he collapsed onto the ground. The passers-by in the surroundings all retreated. This was a serious matter. That was the young master of the Zhang clan, yet he died here. The Zhang clan would definitely fly into a thunderous rage, and at that time, whoever was present would be the unlucky one. They had to run quickly. Ling Han, however, did not take it to heart. There were pitifully few people in the north region that could make him feel apprehensive. Moreover, didn't he still have the princess of the sea race with astonishing brute force by his side? If necessary, he could let her train a little. "Let's go." He continued to walk towards the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, while Hellion Sun Shui and Hu Nyo each held onto his hand on either side. Before entering the city, Ling Han had already changed his appearance a little, and made himself look like a young man in his mid-20s. This caused Hellion Sun Shui to be very surprised, but she was able to see through him with a single glance. Obviously, though she had temporarily forgotten how to circulate her origin power, her eyesight had not faded, and was still extremely shocking. The Spirit Treasures Pavilion was located in the center of the extreme Yang city. Even though they walked and played all the way, after more than an hour, they still arrived in front of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. "Halt!" A group of people caught up to them. They should be the people of the Zhang clan. When they found out that one of their clansmen had been killed on the streets, they naturally immediately came over to seek revenge. How could Ling Han pay any attention to them? He directly entered the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, while Hu Nyo turned around and made a face at those people behind her. "Damn it! The people of the Zhang clan all roared in fury. The two strongest forces of the extreme Yang city were the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the Alchemist Society. Who dared to cause trouble in these two places? They could only wait outside. Would they be afraid that Ling Han would continue to hole up inside and not come out? Ling Han and his group entered the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, and immediately, a beautiful female attendant came forward to receive them. In a clear and melodious voice, she asked, "Guests, what would you like to buy?" Hun Yo was very displeased, and with her hands on her hips, she said, "There's still no." Ling Han laughed and said, "Send a message to Yin Hong, and tell her that the person who came to keep his promise has come." Chapter 408. Ling Han didn't make formation eyes again. Inscribing formation patterns would consume a shocking amount of soul power, and even if he was now in the late stage of the 6th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, he still felt that his soul power wasn't enough. He exited the Black Tower and walked slowly, continuing to search for the whereabouts of the heavenly luck stone. When his spirit recovered, he continued to make the second formation eye. In this way, he spent an entire 7 days to finish making all 7 formation eyes, and his cultivation also reached the peak of the 6th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Maybe tonight, or maybe tomorrow, he could break through. Originally, the formation's eyes needed to be refined by the divine sense and branded with the owner's consciousness before it could be used as one wished. However, these 7 formations' eyes were carved by Ling Han in the first place, and in the process of creating them, his will was naturally left behind, so there was no need to refine them again. He waved his right hand. Pa 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 pa, 7 formation cores appeared around him, and the silhouettes of the 7 formation cores also appeared in his sea of consciousness. They corresponded with each other, and even the formation patterns on them were exactly the same. Wang, in his sea of consciousness, every formation pattern on the formation core began to shine. Each of the 105 formation patterns emitted 104 rays of light, linking the other formation patterns together to form an incomparably wondrous pattern. Hong, around him, the 7 real formation eyes were immediately activated. Like in his consciousness, the formation patterns shone and connected with each other, forming a formation. The power of heaven and earth gathered and quickly condensed into a spirit snake. It was completely snow-white, yet emitted a shocking presence. In an instant, this spirit snake was completely formed. It was 30 meters long and hovered in the air above the formation like a divine dragon. With a thought from Ling Han, this spirit snake also operated as if it was an arm or a finger, doing as he pleased. All of this was because there was a minor heavenly origin spirit snake formation in his sea of consciousness that communicated with the 7 formation eyes. Once his spiritual energy was exhausted, the formation would either disappear on its own or the spirit snake would go out of control. Fortunately, the amount of soul energy needed to inscribe the runes was huge, but the amount of soul energy needed to maintain the formation was much smaller. According to Ling Han's estimation, he could operate it for a day and a night. "Go!" shouted Ling Han. The spirit serpent immediately began to charge forward like a flood dragon. Occasionally, it would smash apart trees and boulders, and occasionally it would wrap around him to form a defensive barrier. After exploring for nearly half an hour, Ling Han had gained a thorough understanding of the effects and limitations of this formation. Spirit snakes could both attack and defend, just like pet beasts. They could attack when advancing and defend when retreating. However, the prerequisite was that they couldn't stray more than 10 feet away from the formation. This was their weakness. However, the solution was also very simple. He just had to move the formation along with him. Therefore, this shortcoming was not fatal. And the natural enemy of a formation was the environment. The small heavenly origin spirit snake formation was a water-type formation, so what it drew upon was water-type spirit chi. However, when it came to a place where the water spirit chi was thin, the formation's power would be greatly reduced. When it came to a place where all the spirit chi was thin, changing to another formation would be useless. Who asked the formation to borrow the power of heaven and earth? If there was no power of heaven and earth to borrow, then it was definitely done for. Let's try the last move. Ling Han shouted loudly. Spirit snake enter body. Xiao, that 10 feet long spirit snake entered his chest and actually disappeared. However, Ling Han's presence suddenly skyrocketed, reaching the level of the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. The formation spirit entering the body can increase battle prowess. The more ordinary one's battle prowess is, the greater the increase. For example, if one's own battle prowess is 1 star and the formation's battle prowess is 10 stars, then it would at least have 10 stars of battle prowess. However, if one's own battle prowess is 10 stars and the formation is also 10 stars, with the two added together, it would be pretty good to have 12 or 13 stars of battle prowess. This is the same as a spirit tool. For those with low battle prowess, it would be a timely help, while for those with strong battle prowess, it would be the icing on the cake. The effect is completely different. Now, with the formation, how many stars can my battle prowess reach? Ling Han scratched his head. It really wasn't easy to calculate, because even if he popped pills in his previous life, he didn't charge up to 20 stars of battle prowess, so he really wasn't clear on how to evaluate battle prowess above that. Forget it, I only need to know that I'm strong enough. Ling Han put away the 7 purple patterned gold rods. The higher the grade of the materials used for the formation's eye, not only could it withstand the tyrannical power of heaven and earth, it could also prevent people from using brute force and weapons to destroy it. Otherwise, once the formation's eye was destroyed, then the formation would also be broken. He walked casually, thinking that there wouldn't be any gains for the time being, but in another 2 months, he would be able to advance into the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, at least able to collect crimson red chilling ice grass. This was the main purpose of his trip, whether it was the black stone or the heavenly luck stone, they were just the icing on the cake. After walking for a while, he heard light footsteps ahead, and very soon, 2 people walked out from the dense forest, one in front and one behind. The one walking in front was a girl dressed all in white, even her face was covered with a white veil, but she was graceful and pretty, almost perfect. Zhu Xian'er. Behind her was a young man, but it wasn't Yao Huiyu. If Yao Huiyu really appeared here, with his arrogance, he would definitely walk side by side with Zhu Xian'er, so how could he possibly follow behind someone else? It was Luo de Lady Zhu, Ling Han greeted. Zhu Xian'er frowned slightly. She knew that Ling Han also came for the crimson red chilling ice grass, which made her very displeased. However, the spirit medicine of heaven and earth didn't belong to anyone, so how could she chase Ling Han away? Besides, she didn't have the right to do so. Thus, she only bowed at Ling Han, then swaggered off. Luo de, however, stared coldly at Ling Han. He had never seen Zhu Xian'er treat another man so politely, which made him burn with jealousy, wanting nothing more than to kill someone. He met Zhu Xian'er by chance, and immediately followed by the goddess side, but because Zhu Xian'er hadn't been able to find the crimson red chilling ice grass, she was in an extremely bad mood and didn't have the mood to talk nonsense with him, which naturally made him feel left out. However, firstly, Zhu Xian'er was as noble as a goddess, and secondly, her strength was far above his. Even if he wanted to use violence, he couldn't beat her. However, Zhu Xian'er treated him coldly, yet bowed to a youngster. With such a comparison, wouldn't it make him explode with fury? Zhu Xian'er quickly disappeared, and Luo de followed. However, not long after, Ling Han heard footsteps behind him. Turning his head, he saw that Luo de was chasing after him with quick steps. "Brat, stop!" Luo de shouted loudly. Ling Han's footsteps didn't stop, and he acted as if he didn't hear. "Xiao," Luo de leaped in front of Ling Han, blocking his path, and said angrily, "Are you deaf? Didn't you hear what I said? Oh, so it's you that's barking. I thought it was a dog." "Don't say, it really does look like one," Ling Han said with a smile. Luo de was startled at first, then immediately flew into a rage. This youngster actually dared to tease him. He said darkly, "Are you tired of living?" Chapter 409. Good dogs don't block the way, get lost. Ling Han waved his hand. Huh. Luo De laughed coldly. Youngsters nowadays were truly ignorant and fearless. Facing him, a spiritual pedestal tier warrior and an existence on the prodigy roll, he still dared to be so arrogant. He snorted and said, I won't argue with you for now. Speak, how do you know Fairy Zhu? In the end, he still couldn't let go of Zhu Xian'er's attitude towards Ling Han. What was the relationship between the two that Zhu Xian'er actually saluted to Ling Han? Oh, you're talking about Xian'er. Ling Han laughed mischievously and started spouting nonsense, saying, she's my family's child bride, so of course she salutes when she sees me. My Zhu still understands the 3 obediences and 4 virtues. Luo De was dumbfounded by his bluff, then reacted and said, nonsense. Zhu Xian'er was a proud disciple of the Half-Moon sect, how could she be someone's child bride? TSK, 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 you found that out, such high intelligence. Ling Han deliberately praised. Luo Da's face darkened. This youngster dared to play him like a monkey. His eyes spat fire as he said, if you don't tell the truth, don't blame me for being heartless. He released the presence of the spiritual pedestal tier, rolling out. For a genius like him, a month's time was enough to change a lot. For example, he completely stabilized his tier and pushed his cultivation to the late stage of the first layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and his strength was at least 30% stronger than when he fought Xinzhongcheng. He had unlimited room for improvement, but no matter how much the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier solidified his tier, there would always be a limit, and the closer one was to the limit, the harder it was to improve. Thus, in the same amount of time, his strength definitely surpassed Xinzhongcheng's. If he fought Xinzhongcheng again, he had full confidence that he could win. Ling Han deliberately hugged his shoulders and said, don't scare me, I'm easily frightened. Ha, you indeed should be frightened, because you're facing Luo De on the prodigy roll, Luo De said proudly, satisfied with Ling Han's fear. Ling Han continued, I'll go crazy when I'm frightened, and I like to beat people up. I don't know how many people have been beaten by me until they kneel on the ground and call me grandpa. Don't tell me you want to call me grandpa too. The corner of Luo Da's mouth twitched. He felt that the mouth of this young man in front of him was really sinister. He said coldly, your mouth is so cheap. You're just seeking death. Hey, you're scaring me again. Ling Han laughed. I'm not trying to scare you. I really will hit you. Luo De attacked. His right hand shot out, and the will of martial art swirled around him. Hong! Light burst forth, and he seemed to be stepping on a divine cloud as he approached, his aura mighty. Ling Han smiled faintly and clenched his right hand into a fist, waiting for the other party to grab him before punching out fiercely. Bam! With a loud bang, the two of them took a few steps back. Ling Han was astonished and said, I underestimated you a little. You were actually able to force me to retreat. Sigh, as expected, one can't be too arrogant. This has to change. Fuck. Luo De, on the other hand, was both shocked and furious. Those words should have been said by him. He was in the spiritual pedestal tier, and in terms of battle prowess, he should absolutely crush the spiritual ocean tier. However, in that exchange of blows, although he didn't use his full strength and didn't use any martial arts techniques, that was still a spiritual pedestal tier attack. Most importantly, Ling Han hadn't even reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but his battle prowess was so shocking, practically a second Xinzhongcheng. He was truly a monster. On this year's prodigy roll, this young man was definitely a dark horse that would shine brilliantly. Thinking of this, Luo Da's killing intent instantly rose. There was no need for such a monster to compete with him on the prodigy roll. You want to kill me? Ling Han shook his head, and said, at first, there was no enmity between us, so it would have been fine if I had beaten you up, but you actually wanted to kill me, so I had no choice but to kill you. This is called a not losing out. Kill me? Luo De sneered. Even Xinzhongcheng definitely wasn't his match now, not to mention the latter hadn't even reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. He unsheathed his swords. Holding two short swords in the hands of a brawny man like him, a sense of incongruity instantly rolled over. Ling Han casually waved, and Xiao, a branch landed in his hand. He smiled slightly, and said, "I'll use this branch to kill you." Luo De was furious. Shen Zhongqing didn't draw his sword when he battled him, and now Ling Han used a branch to say he would kill him. Both of them were looking down on him too much. He snorted angrily, and said, "You'll soon suffer the consequences of your own actions. You have strength, that's how confident you are." Ling Han laughed loudly and took the initiative to attack. With a wave of his sword, Xiao, 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 7 flashes of sword qi appeared. 7 flashes of sword qi. Luo De exclaimed, his face revealing a shocked expression. He had only cultivated 6 flashes of sword qi. Die! Luo De brandished his 2 swords, and white threads weaved densely, forming a spiderweb. This was a secret art he cultivated that could turn sword qi into a fishnet. Once it was retracted, a terrifying destructive power would burst forth completely. Wasn't he just behind by 1 flash of sword qi? He had the advantage of a major tier, and he had a spirit tool in hand, which was enough to make up for it. Pu, piu, piu, Ling Han's sword qi slashed onto the fishnet, and instantly tore a hole in it. However, these sword qi were also annihilated, and it could be said that they were evenly matched. But Luo Da's expression became more and more unsightly. He clearly had the advantage of a major tier, and even used a spirit tool to activate sword qi, but even so, the quality of their sword qi was only evenly matched. One had to know that the quality of sword qi depended on 3 factors: one's own strength, comprehension of the way of the sword, and the medium in which the sword qi was released. He had an absolute advantage in terms of strength and medium, but it was still a tie. It could be seen how much worse his comprehension of the way of the sword was compared to Ling Han's. "How about it?" Ling Han said with a smile, and waved the branch, slicing towards Luo De again. With the infusion of origin power, this branch was as hard as an iron sword. Arrogant and conceited, you'll only bring about your own destruction. Luo De sneered, and waved his sword to meet the attack. Countless threads weaved densely, wanting to trap Ling Han within. Ling Han had no intention of fighting, and his expression became stern as he used the mysterious 3000. Luo De instantly felt a chill all over his body. The presence that Ling Han emitted now actually reminded him of Yao Huiyu. Back then, Yao Huiyu only raised a finger, and soared intent sword to the skies, easily killing 2 elites in the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. 2 completely different people, but the presence they emitted was shockingly similar, which made his legs go weak. Hong, 276 flashes of sword light floated, blasting towards Luo De. Luo De gritted his teeth. Shua, 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 as he retreated, he waved his sword, weaving a dense net of sword qi in front of him. Pu, piu, 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 the sword light attacked, and the large net instantly shattered with a loud bang. His weaving speed was far inferior to the destructive power of the sword light, and although he lost a few dozen flashes of sword light, there were still close to 200 that shot over. Luo De roared, blocking with all his might. The sword light surged past, and he was wounded all over, but his life was saved. After all, these sword lights were activated by tree branches, and not only were there far less than 800, the destructive power of the sword lights was also much weaker. Added with the fact that Luo De was in the spiritual pedestal tier after all, and had the ability to battle above his own tier, he finally escaped the disaster. Chapter 410. Didn't kill. Ling Han blanked, then shook his head and loosened his hand, turning the branch into fine powder. It was only a normal branch, so how could it withstand his sword intent? Once the origin power dispersed, it naturally died. Luo De looked at Ling Han with a face full of shock. Was this youngster a monster? He was obviously only at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but his battle prowess was even stronger than Shen Zhongcheng's, almost killing him with a tree branch as a sword. Ling Han rubbed his chin and said, "What should I do? I said I only used a branch, but I couldn't kill him. Now this is awkward." Luo Da's teeth chattered, but his face was resolute as he said, "If you want to kill, then kill, don't humiliate me." Ling Han laughed and said, "You're a character on the prodigy roll, at least you have some backbone. Alright, since you want to die so much, I can only fulfill your wish." Luo Da's face twitched. Did Ling Han have the thought of letting him go? If he was so stubborn just now, didn't he directly lose his life? The price of being stubborn was too great. Ling Han's expression suddenly froze, and he looked up at the sky as he said, "Since you're here, why hide? Hee, just passing by and joining in the fun." A middle-aged man in his 30s jumped down from the top of the tree. His figure was slender, and even in his middle age, he still exuded an enchanting elegance. Ninth layer of the spiritual pedestal tier. Ling Han estimated that unarmed, his battle prowess was about 2 stars of the spiritual pedestal tier, and using the mysterious 3000 could make his battle prowess soar to 3 stars. Adding on 2 spirit tools, he could reach 7 stars, and with the addition of the formation, his limit was comparable to 9 stars of the spiritual pedestal tier. This was extremely shocking. He was only at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Battle prowess crossed a whole tier. This was truly nature-defying. Of course, if Black Tower's power boost was counted, this wasn't normal battle prowess, and could only be used once per tier. However, he was freakish, and his opponent could also be freakish. The 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier might not only have 9 stars battle prowess, it could be 10 stars, 15 stars, or even 20 stars, who knew? "How should I address you?" Ling Han asked with a smile. "My surname is Ding, and my name is Yuanxin," the middle-aged man said with a smile. His gaze swept over Ling Han, and a cold aura emanated from him. He was Ding Gao Yang's elder brother. He was on the Heaven's Chosen list 2 years ago, and his ranking wasn't low either. In this way, Ling Han could immediately confirm that his opponent's battle prowess was definitely more than 9 stars. If one did not have the ability to fight above one's level, how could one make it onto the Heaven's Proud Son of Heaven ranking? What a joke. No matter what, one would at least have a battle prowess that could surpass 5 stars. Ling Han nodded and said, "I seem to have heard of someone called Ding Gaoyang. Do you know him?" "That's my younger brother," Xian said. "Then I'm really sorry. I killed him." Ling Han shrugged. "I know. That's why I'm here to kill you," Xian said calmly, but her tone was extremely cold. Ling Han rubbed his chin and said, "Are you sure you can kill me? You're certainly extraordinary. You're only at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but your battle prowess has broken through the limits of the spiritual ocean tier, reaching the level of 2 stars or even 3 stars of the spiritual pedestal tier. But that's all. I'm at the 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, and my battle prowess can reach 15 stars. How are you going to block me?" Xian said indifferently, extremely calm. "Then what are you waiting for? Let me test the battle prowess of 15 stars of the spiritual pedestal tier." Ling Han said with a laugh. "As you wish," she humphed in her heart. Her figure flashed, and she had already appeared in front of Ling Han. She struck out a palm at Ling Han's forehead, and before her palm had even arrived, her origin power had already arrived. It was filled with frightening destructive power. Ling Han's figure shot backwards. Wang, the thunder battle armor was already activated, forming a lightning barrier. The demon birth sword was also in his hand. He lit up 2 vein-like patterns, and with a slash, 7 flashes of sword chi shot out. Paw! With a single strike, he was still sent flying. The exposed skin on his palm, neck, and so on split open, revealing traces of blood. The battle prowess of 15 stars of the spiritual pedestal tier was too terrifying, and he hadn't even activated the small heavenly origin spirit snake formation, so he was naturally even less of a match. However, Ding Yuan Xian revealed an astonished expression. Although he didn't use his full strength in this strike, with his strength, a casual strike would have at least 10 stars of battle prowess, yet it only cracked Ling Han's skin. This was too exaggerated. Ling Han, however, cast it aside in his mind. If it weren't for the fact that he still had the body of rock cliff and couldn't advance into the body of iron sheet, this kind of power shock wouldn't even crack his skin. Only Luoda was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. So Ling Han was actually strong to this extent, and he actually wanted to kill him. He really didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. The problem was, how could he be so strong? What spirit tool is this? Xian stared at the demon birth sword in Ling Han's hand. Just now, if he hadn't been intimidated by this sword, causing his battle prowess to drop, Ling Han wouldn't have been as simple as being sent flying. Not only this sword, but the battle armor on his body also had shocking defensive effects. With the two together, it allowed Ling Han to have battle prowess on par with 10 stars of the spiritual pedestal tier. Take a guess, Ling Han said with a smile. It's fine if you don't say. After I snatch it, it'll be mine, Xian said confidently. His battle prowess was as high as 15 stars, and Ling Han had some difficulty withstanding a casual strike from him just now, so how could he block his full strength? Your imagination is really rich, Ling Han said with a smile as he clapped his hands. Whether it's imagination or reality, you'll soon know. A hint of greed appeared in Xian's eyes. The two spirit tools on Ling Han made him envious. Whether it was to avenge his younger brother or to snatch these two spirit tools, he had to kill Ling Han. Hong, he attacked. With a palm strike, the wind and clouds moved. The 9th layer of the spiritual pedestal tier was already the limit that mortals could reach, so its might was naturally terrifying. With a palm strike, vein-like patterns lit up one after another. Hong, boundless flames shot out, turning the surroundings into a sea of fire. Ah! Luoda screamed, hurriedly scrambling to escape. He was only in the 1st layer of the spiritual pedestal tier, so how could he defend against the might of these flames? On the thunder battle armor, vein-like patterns weaved densely, emitting endless lightning that wrapped around Ling Han's body and blocked the might of the flames. However, this was enough. His tier was still a bit low, and the lightning power he unleashed wasn't strong enough, unable to stand against the might of the flames. Ling Han drew his sword, and 7 flashes of sword chi crisscrossed, revolving around Xian. Not enough. Xian sneered. His advantage in tier was too great, and no matter what method Ling Han used, he couldn't make up for such a gap. Ling Han didn't answer, only accepting the battle. With a shake of his left hand, he also unleashed the purple gold patterned rod and set up the small Tianyuan spirit snake array. Instantly, a spirit snake appeared and entered his body, increasing his battle prowess again. A formation. Xian revealed a look of surprise. Never thought that you're actually a formation master. However, even if you set up a formation, you're still not my match, far from it. Peng, 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 the two fought fiercely, but without any suspense. The battle was one-sided. Xian had the absolute upper hand, and with only a dozen moves, Ling Han was already surrounded by perils. This was with him having the thunder battle armor, or else he would have died many times already. Even so, he was still riddled with wounds, and some even injured his bones, greatly affecting his battle prowess. Chapter 411. That young man finally revealed a surprised expression, and walked towards Ling Han with a serious expression. He said, "You can actually block one of my moves. Not bad, not bad. Who are you to be qualified for me to know your name? Are you retarded?" Ling Han asked coldly. This young man really thought that he was the king of the world, and that everything revolved around him. How dare you! That young man was furious, and struck out with another palm strike. Instantly, a total of 23 fierce fire tigers appeared, pouncing towards Ling Han. Every fire tiger was extremely terrifying, capable of suppressing an ordinary cultivator in the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier. With 23 of them appearing together, it was practically terrifying. 22 flashes of qi. Ling Han couldn't help but be surprised. He had only grasped 19 flashes of sword qi, and his attainments in fist techniques were obviously even more lacking. However, he only snorted coldly, and still struck out with his fists, striking out with 17 silvery dragon elephants. Peng, 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 the dragon elephants and fire tigers collided, tearing at each other. It was very obvious that the fire tigers had the upper hand. Only 13 of them were able to match the 17 dragon elephants, and the remaining 10 fire tigers continued to charge towards Ling Han. Ling Han used the demon fairy step and dodged this attack. A strong fighting spirit flashed in his eyes, and he shouted, "Take another punch from me." He struck out with his fist again, and this time, he fused an ancient bone pattern into it. Instantly, his martial intent became indescribably resplendent, and the might of the 17 dragon elephants increased by several times, launching a counterattack towards that young man. Somewhat interesting. That young man struck out with his palm, and there were still 23 fire tigers pouncing. Pang! This time, the 17 dragon elephants were actually able to match the 17 fire tigers, but there were still 6 fire tigers that continued to pounce towards Ling Han. It couldn't be helped. This young man's comprehension of martial arts was deeper than Ling Han's, at least in the field of qi. Added with the fact that the young man's cultivation level was higher, he definitely had the upper hand. This was something that could not be helped. Most importantly, the young man was also a genius, and a super genius at that. Ling Han gave a long shout, and used the demon fairy step to cut in front of the young man, wanting to engage in close combat with him. He had formed the body of iron sheet, and added with the fact that the 9 dragons tyrant body art had also advanced into the flower blossom tier. In terms of close combat, he was definitely the strongest in the flower blossom tier. Unless the young man could also be so freakish, cultivating some super body art that not only would his physical strength be terrifying, even his physique would be incomparably tough. Relying on the wonders of the demon fairy step, he successfully cut in front of the young man, and threw a punch at the young man. "Fighting in close combat with me, where do you get your confidence from?" the young man said with a sneer, and moved to block Ling Han's attack with a palm strike. His speed was actually ridiculously fast. Generally speaking, martial artists would avoid close combat, because everyone only cultivated origin power, and their physiques were not strong. In an instant, you could spit out 10 or even 20 flashes of origin power from your palm, but without enough power to support it, would your hand be able to wave out 10 or even 20 times in an instant? If there was enough distance between them, then a martial artist would only need to flip his hand and wave his sword, and he would be able to injure someone from an extremely far distance. Would you run faster with a leap, or would I be faster with just a raise of my hand? But in close combat, raising one's hand and flipping one's palm would become a relatively extravagant thing. There was a saying that a whip was too long to reach, but if a whip was too long, it would similarly be inflexible when used. However, this young man was actually extremely skilled in close combat. This palm strike was very experienced, showing his full skill. This proved that the young man definitely had a strong physique. Ling Han's fighting spirit was greatly aroused, and with a long shout, he began a fierce battle with the young man. Pang, 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 they both fought short and fast. There were no flashy moves, only martial intent. One after another, vein-like patterns shone brightly, and were continuously being shattered and reformed. In this battle, the two of them actually fought to a draw. Ling Han's physique was undoubtedly stronger. That had been tempered by the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, and after cultivating the 9 dragons tyrant body art, the strength of his physical body was similarly terrifying. The young man's physique was inferior to Ling Han's, and his brute force was also inferior, but his stronger origin power made up for this shortcoming. "I've really underestimated you," the young man said coldly, killing intent swirling in his eyes. Pang, a terrifying force burst out from his body, turning into thousands of flaming blades that bombarded towards Ling Han. Even if Ling Han had cultivated the body of iron sheet, and his physique was comparable to rare metals of the same level, he still felt a little apprehensive. He couldn't help but retreat, pulling apart the distance between him and the young man. Ha 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 ha, within 10 moves, I'll make you bow down to me. The young man laughed loudly, and pushed out palm after palm. It was as if he was a supreme being that could split open the heavens and split the earth, and his battle prowess instantly increased by a great deal. Unless the level of brute force surpassed the level of origin power, then it would definitely be best to pull apart the distance and fight. However, this kind of person with super brute force basically did not exist in the lower realm. The young man was very smart, and although he was arrogant, he was not stupid at all. Although he had previously expressed his disdain towards Ling Han, he completely did not tangle with Ling Han in close combat, which was not his strongest area. Those that cultivated origin power naturally had to pull apart the distance and display their martial arts techniques to their heart's content. Ling Han was suppressed, but it was not that he did not have the ability to turn the tables. What he was most skilled in was sword techniques, but he had not unleashed the demon birth sword, nor had he used the mysterious 3000. These were his trump cards. Moreover, this was the middle state. Who knew if the mysterious 3000 would be recognized by others, and what if the old monster of the Heaven's Sword sect was provoked? Stop! A cold humph rang out, and a displeased voice was heard from the palace above. Where do you think this is, that you can be so insolent here? This deep shout was very imposing, and Ling Han and the young man immediately stopped at the same time. Pride needed to be in the right place. Otherwise, it would not be pride, but idiocy. The person who shouted was at least in the deity transformation tier. No matter how freakish Ling Han and the young man were, when they encountered such an existence, they would definitely be suppressed in minutes. Whoever did not listen was asking for a beating, and Ling Han and the young man obviously did not want to be beaten. That young man was still arrogant. He glanced at Ling Han with a disdainful gaze, and no longer paid any attention. He turned to Helian Sun Shui, and said, I'm Shenyuan Ziguang, I fucked you, be my woman. So he was Shenyuan Ziguang. No wonder he was so strong. Helian Sun Shui hurriedly hid behind Ling Han, then stuck out her pretty face and stuck out her tongue at Shenyuan Ziguang, feeling that this person was really inexplicable and annoying. Meanwhile, Ling Han looked at Shenyuan Ziguang with a sympathetic gaze. This guy thought so highly of himself, but did not know that this adorably silly woman was a heaven-tier existence. Although she lost her memory now, she would recover one day, and at that time, you'd be in trouble. When Shenyuan Ziguang saw this, his gaze towards Ling Han involuntarily carried a strong killing intent. The woman he fucked was actually so intimate with another man, he could not stand it. He definitely had to kill this man, or else the knot in his heart could not be erased. Leave this place, and you'll be a dead man, he said, pointing at Ling Han. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, all right, you wait for me here for a lifetime. Shenyuan Ziguang choked, not expecting Ling Han to be so shameless. He snorted, and said, I'll wait for you. Chapter 412. This was a team from the Heavenly Silkworm Institution, but the only one who truly belonged to the Heavenly Silkworm Institution was the old man called Zui Dao. The others were like Ling Han, recruited by him along the way. Needless to say, this team was completely cannon fodder. If they really encountered a great battle, then they would all be sacrificing their lives. Some people's eyes were filled with worry, obviously knowing the truth, but others were overjoyed. They could earn 2 origin crystals a day, where else could they find such a good thing? However, if a great battle broke out among the great forces, everyone here would probably die, so why would the Heavenly Silkworm Court need to pay the dead origin crystals? Ling Han was calm and collected. He had the Black Tower, so he was very confident. Instead, he had the intention to fish in troubled waters. He and Hunyo pretended to be pigs to eat tigers. One was a young man, and the other was a little girl, so how could they be on guard? After eating, the team headed southwest. In less than half a day, a valley appeared in front of them, but there was a sea of people outside the valley, as if there was a big meeting. Ling Han's eyes swept over the area, and he saw that this place was divided into a large number of factions. They used simple tents to form a small area, and the majority of the factions actually had flags. For example, the Heavenly Silkworm Court had a purple demonic silkworm, the Eroding Bone Tower had a skull, and the Cold Water Sect had an ice river. Cold Water Sect also came. Ling Han snickered. Previously, when he was at the Fallen Moon Gorge, he had killed a disciple of the Cold Water Sect. If he revealed his identity now, would the elites of the Cold Water Sect seek him out for revenge? If it was a narrow path, then they might, but under the eyes of so many people, who would dare to attack an alchemist? Unless the alchemist really did something that angered the heavens and caused public anger, they would have to consider such a colossus like the Alchemist Society. Moreover, Ling Han was now an Earth-grade alchemist. To offend an Earth-grade alchemist for a mere spiritual ocean-tier disciple, only one's own son would die like this, right? Ling Han looked around. All the forces he knew were basically all here, except for one. Bloodlight Restaurant. It was said that the original Blood Lighthouse Master was defeated by a person who called himself Fist Emperor and gave up the position of House Master. Now, this successor really could endure it and did not even make a move against the Heavenly Luck Stone. One had to know that even if he didn't use it himself, he could throw it into the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and auction it off for a sky-high price. Ling Han kept a low profile and hid in the Celestial Silkworm Yard's cannon fodder team. Every day, he cultivated and studied his sword Dao and array Dao. The great Dao of the world was interlinked. It was in the formation that he obtained the comprehension of side paths, which allowed him to cultivate the eighth sword Qi. Having tasted the sweetness of it, he was naturally full of confidence. Yao Huiyu was only 24 or 25 years old, but he had managed to cultivate 9 flashes of sword Qi, or even more, which gave him a lot of pressure. The older generation had all arrived, so the youngsters on the prodigy roll naturally could no longer take the limelight. However, Zhu Xian'er was still like a bright moon. No matter where she went, she would cause a commotion, always surrounded by countless people. There was a Heavenly Luck Stone in the valley, but it was hidden in a cave. There was a demonic beast guarding it, blocking the way out. Until now, no one dared to take the risk. Because this demonic beast was the Golden Blood Demonic Ape, a king among demonic beasts. Ninth layer of the Flower Blossom tier plus a king among demonic beasts determined that this demonic beast's strength was astonishing. Moreover, the demonic beasts here had their minds affected by the chaotic will. All of them only knew how to kill, making the Golden Blood Demonic Ape even more terrifying. There were quite a few Flower Blossom tier cultivators here, but not many reached the 9th layer. Not to mention 10, even 20 working together might not be the demonic ape's match. Thus, everyone was waiting. Battling with such a vicious beast, it was extremely possible to die, so obviously, the more confidence, the better. However, it wouldn't take too long, because the demonic chi here affected the will of living beings, making people crazy. This was something that no one wanted to happen to them. Now, these great cultivators were all negotiating. First, the Heavenly Luck Stone belonged to whom, and how much benefits the owner was willing to give to settle the others. The Golden Blood Demonic Ape was a king tier, and its flesh, skin, hair, and bones were all extremely valuable, so how would it be distributed? These days were wrangling, just like an auction. Every party wanted to use the smallest price to obtain the greatest benefit, and when there were more people, it naturally became an endless meeting. However, 2 days later, that Golden Blood Demonic Ape attacked on its own. It was 100 feet tall, and its entire body was covered in red fur. It was 2 feet long, and it was gently swaying in the mountain breeze. Its claws were also shockingly long, each one 3 feet long like a sharp spear. That cold glint made one's hair stand on end just by looking at it. This was a king tier beast, and was even stronger than the 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier. The aura it emitted was extremely terrifying, comparable to the 1st layer of the Spiritual Infant tier. Precisely because of this, even the Flower Blossom tier elites didn't dare to rashly start a battle. Those below the Flower Blossom tier all felt their legs go soft, almost falling onto the ground. This aura was too terrifying. Previously, Feng Yan took out a spiritual infant tier law decree, which made spiritual pedestal tier elites unable to move, and now, this demonic ape was almost as strong as this. However, there were a few exceptions, such as Zhu Xian'er, Shenzhong Cheng, and some youngsters that Ling Han didn't recognize. They actually resisted this aura. These youngsters were the kings of the human race. Although still immature, even the young kings were still kings, so how could they bend their knees and lower their heads to another king? Ling Han didn't want to stand out, so he pulled Hu Niu to sit on the ground. Everyone was sitting anyway, so he didn't have to worry about being blocked by others. Moreover, this demonic ape was 30 meters tall, so it was too obvious a target. Kill, kill. The demonic ape actually spoke the human language, and its blood-red eyes were filled with ruthlessness. It immediately began a massacre, waving its demonic claws. Shua, 5 flashes of qi shot out, transforming into 3,000 meters long. Pu, piu, 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 the qi streaked past, and the people lying, sitting, or kneeling on the ground were all cut in half without any suspense. Stop! With its attack, the flower blossom tier elites couldn't sit still anymore, attacking the demonic ape one after another. One had to know that there weren't only cannon fodder here, but also their sect's disciples. If they all died here, it would be a great loss. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ling Han counted. There were a total of 34 flower blossom tier warriors. 3 reached the 9th layer, 5 reached the 8th layer, and 9 reached the 7th layer. As for those below the 7th layer, it actually didn't mean much. Against a king tier, they could at most hold them back for a while, and didn't have the ability to fight head-on. Just like Ling Han, even if 100 people in the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier came, so what? They would still be easily insta-killed by him. Hong, hong, hong. A great battle was about to begin. Although the demonic ape fought one against many, it actually took the initiative. As it waved its demonic claws, each claw unleashed a flash of qi that was indestructible, forcing the flower blossom tier elites to dodge everywhere. A king among beasts was truly powerful. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 413. The demonic ape waved its arms, its 10 fingers moving freely, and one powerful qi after another slashed out, filled with unstoppable destructive power. At least, in the flower blossom tier, it was practically invincible. Qi! All the flower blossom tier elites unleashed their spirit tools to block, but even if it was a level 6 spirit tool, in the face of the forceful qi, multiple scratches appeared, causing them to suck in a breath of cold air. If they were caught by the demonic ape's claws, then wouldn't they be snapped in half? And if their bodies were scratched, what use would it be even if they used origin power to defend? With this thought, even the 9th layer flower blossom tier elites didn't dare to face it head-on, only restraining it from the outside. However, no one dared to face it head-on, so the demonic ape naturally came and went as it pleased, displaying its ferocity to its fullest. Though it was so huge, its movements were extremely nimble, and extremely fast. Sometimes left, sometimes right, sometimes front, sometimes back, it was so strange that people wanted to vomit blood. It was completely an agile type. However, when the flower blossom tier elites really thought it was an agile type, the demonic ape launched a violent attack, targeting only one person. That person was at the 2nd layer of the flower blossom tier, and his strength was much weaker than the demonic ape's. Once targeted, his face turned green. Everyone hurriedly tried to rescue him, but the demonic ape's physique was tough, and sword qi, saber qi, and the like couldn't harm it at all from a distance, not even a hair was cut. Left with no choice, they could only charge over. Anyway, the demonic ape targeted that flower blossom tier elite, which was equivalent to facing it head-on, so they weren't afraid of close combat. Kill, kill! The demonic ape suddenly turned around, and actually charged towards the crowd. Everyone knew that the dark demon forest was filled with a strange aura. After staying here for a long time, no matter if it was a beast or a human, they would all become crazy and bloodthirsty. This certainly increased their killing power, but also affected their intelligence. To be honest, without intelligence, no matter how strong their battle prowess was, it would be limited. This was also the main reason why everyone dared to attack the demonic ape. But who would have thought that such a large group of people was fooled by the demonic ape, creating a diversion and drawing the snake out? Was this really a vicious creature that only knew to kill? Not good. The Flower Life tier elites' faces all turned green. Though they had the advantage in numbers, in a head-on battle, would they really be able to block a Beast King in the 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier? After all, they only had 3 in the 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier. And it was at this moment that the 3 elites in the 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier were the first to retreat, followed by those in the 8th layer and 7th layer of the Flower Blossom tier. The higher the tier, the stronger the control over one's own power. The demonic ape let out a strange laugh. Pa, its arms spread open, and each grabbed a Flower Blossom tier elite warrior, relaxed and happy. The 9th layer of the Flower Blossom tier against the 5th layer of the Flower Blossom tier, and the other was also a king tier, so this was naturally the result. Who asked everyone's minds to be filled with thoughts of running? Save me! Save me! The 2 captured Flower Blossom tier warriors shouted loudly as they struggled with all their might. The will of martial arts spread out, and endless vein-like patterns opened up on the surface of their bodies, glowing with a shocking brilliance. If every vein-like pattern was struck down, it would be enough to annihilate a large group of spiritual pedestal tier warriors, but now, they couldn't break free from the demonic ape's control no matter what. The might of a king-level demonic beast was fully displayed. Clap clap, the demonic ape exerted force with its claws, and actually crushed the 2 Flower Blossom tier warriors. Hong, a terrifying power vibrated, echoing between heaven and earth. When martial artists cultivated, it was equivalent to using themselves as a furnace to improve themselves. Especially after advancing into the Flower Blossom tier, the power contained within one's body was world-shaking and extremely terrifying. Now that they were crushed, the terrifying power went out of control, which was naturally shocking. The demonic ape wasn't the slightest bit afraid. Instead, it opened its mouth and threw the bodies of the 2 Flower Blossom tier warriors into its mouth, chewed a few times, and swallowed them whole. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Between humans and demonic beasts, it was actually a "you eat me, I eat you" relationship. Because the flesh and blood of both sides were extremely beneficial to each other, it was normal for them to eat each other. However, from the standpoint of humans, it was still a great shock to see their own kind being swallowed whole. Moreover, those were 2 Flower Blossom tier elites. No matter which party, this was an unbearable loss. After eating 2 Flower Blossom tier warriors, the demonic ape's blood-red eyes shone even brighter, like 2 small suns. It stared at everyone again, its killing intent earth-shattering. Ling Han shook his head inwardly. If human martial artists continued to harbor such thoughts, they would only be defeated by the demonic ape. Moreover, the demonic ape was already at the peak of the Flower Blossom tier, and if it ate a dozen Flower Blossom tier martial artists, it might be able to advance. If it advanced into the spiritual infant tier, then with the might of a king-level beast, no matter how many Flower Blossom tier warriors came, they would only be annihilated. Forget it, while they're fighting fiercely, let's get the Heavenly Luck Stone first. Ling Han thought inwardly. His gaze swept, and he discovered that he wasn't the only one with such an idea. Those geniuses that could resist the demonic ape's pressure also moved, entering the valley one after another. There are quite a lot of smart people. Ling Han stood up. Pooh! The cannon fodder beside him all stared with their eyes popping out. How could this youngster stand up? He was clearly only at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Could it be that he was also at the king level of humans? Even Zuiyu Dao's face twitched. He didn't think that the cannon fodder he casually recruited was actually a king among martial artists. If Ling Han had the intention now, it would be too easy to kill him. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, "Everyone, rest for a while. Let's have some fun first." He broke into a run, and Hunyo naturally followed closely. Pooh! The little girl also ran her legs happily, and everyone spurted again. They were actually inferior to a 5 or 6-year-old little girl. How could they bear it? How could they bear it? These two monsters, one big and one small, those that formed 7 flashes of chi could be called kings among humans, and the ones that could move freely now were such young kings. As long as they formed chi, they had the potential to become a king. Although they couldn't completely resist this kind of pressure, they could still move. The more chi they formed, the stronger their resistance. There were at least several hundred people running towards the valley, and Ling Han couldn't help but jump in fright. He didn't think that so many people formed 7 flashes of chi. However, they weren't all youngsters. There were many in the prime of their 30s and 40s, and even old kings. Spiritual pedestal tier warriors were obviously the fastest, and arrived at the depths of the valley in a few breaths' time. There was a cave on the wall, which was the demonic ape's lair. The huge cave entrance was like a demonic mouth that could swallow everything. Pang, 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 the people running in front were immediately bounced back. At the cave entrance, vein-like patterns shone, extremely resplendent. Fuck, that demonic ape sealed the cave entrance with power. This isn't an array, nor is it a restriction. It was forcefully sealed with the power of the flower blossom tier. At most, it can last for a few hours, but within these few hours, unless one's power reaches the flower blossom tier, then one can tear an opening on the surface and enter. Everyone was dumbfounded. Who said the demonic ape was stupid? They were all fooled. Chapter 4:14. Xiao, a strong chi sliced over from outside the valley, turning into a sharp blade that was 3,000 meters long, extremely terrifying. Everyone's faces turned green from fright. This strong chi was too long, and it was impossible to dodge to the left or right, not even upwards. It was a strike from the demonic ape, and even if they weren't directly cut, under the terrifying rising power, with their spiritual pedestal tier and spiritual ocean tier strength, they would definitely be shattered. Dig a hole. Someone immediately bombarded the ground. There was always the saying of the shield of earth, hiding in the soil might be able to avoid the disaster. Everyone followed suit, bombarding the ground. The people here were all at least in the spiritual ocean tier, so blasting a hole in the ground was easy. In an instant, everyone became rats on the ground, crawling into the holes in the soil. The strong chi streaked past, pang, 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 raising a cloud of dust. The terrifying energy swept out, slicing the mountain wall before disappearing. This mountain wall was extraordinarily sturdy. Receiving the demonic ape's attack, it didn't completely slice off, but only left a mark that wasn't even a foot deep, truly shocking. Everyone who was hiding in the soil was blasted out, and all of them spat out blood. A few people who were too weak were directly blasted into a pool of blood. However, most of the people were still lucky enough to survive. People like Zhu Xian, Xian, and the others all walked towards Ling Han. The reminder just now came from him. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, "No need to thank me." Although there were enemies here, he didn't have to rely on the demonic ape to kill them. Did he not even have this bit of confidence? Besides, some people weren't bad, and dying here was a pity. Hurry and leave this place. The rescued people, regardless of whether they knew each other or not, all nodded at Ling Han, then ran out of the valley one after another. Being hit by the demonic ape's attack caused them to be heavily injured, and a few more hits would definitely be finished. Moreover, this mountain wall was so sturdy that they couldn't break through it with their strength, so there was only one way to obtain the heavenly luck stone: kill the demonic ape. Fortunately, when their own outstanding junior suffered an attack, the flower blossom tier elites outside the valley also began to put their lives on the line, restraining the demonic ape and not giving it another chance to unleash a killing move. When Ling Han saw that most of the people in the valley had fled, he said to Hunyo, "Nyo, can you go in?" Hunyo was a freak. Others might not have a way, but maybe she could. Let Nyo try. Hunyo squatted at the mouth of the cave, opened her mouth, and bit down. With a kacha sound, resplendent vein-like patterns immediately shone at the entrance of the cave. Once it was touched, the power laid down by the demonic ape would automatically manifest itself. The little girl, on the other hand, went berserk. She bit left and right, and actually ate all the vein-like lines in the vicinity cleanly. Oh, my God! Even if Ling Han knew that Hunyo was extraordinary, the fact that she was so freakish still made the corners of his mouth twitch, unable to accept it. That was a power defense set up by a beast in the 9th layer of the flower blossom tier, and a king among beasts, yet it was still bitten through by Hunyo. What kind of teeth did she have? After biting out a small hole, Hunyo immediately crawled in, and ran inside with paw 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 paw. She knew what Ling Han wanted. In a short while, she ran back from the cave, crawled out of the cave, and threw herself into Ling Han's arms, handing over 9 pearl-like things. Immediately, a strong fragrance assailed the nostrils, making all the pores on one's body open. It was indescribably comfortable. Heavenly Luck Stone. Ling Han hurriedly stored the 9 heavenly luck stones into the black tower, then picked up Hunyo, and slowly walked out of the valley. Just now, he used his own body as a cover, so no one discovered that Hunyo entered the valley. And who would have thought that Hunyo actually had such great ability, being able to bite through even the power defense set up by a flower blossom tier warrior? Now, everyone was paying attention to the battle in the sky. As long as the demonic ape was killed, then they would naturally be able to enter the cave and obtain the heavenly luck stone. Ling Han's heart thumped rapidly. He only knew that there were heavenly luck stones in the cave, but he didn't think there were as many as 9, which meant that he could create 9 geniuses. 1 for him, 1 for Hunyo, 1 for Ling Dongxing, 1 for Lu Yutong, and 1 for Kenyi. These 5 definitely had to be used, and Guang Yuan, Zhu Wujiu, and Li Xichan's martial art talent wasn't outstanding, so wouldn't it be a bit of a waste to give it to them? Whatever, everyone could only take 1 heavenly luck stone anyway, and there was no point in having more. If he didn't give it to them, who would he give it to? Spending it on his own people would be making the best use of it. It was decided then. After a while, he'd already made up his mind. As for how to use the remaining 1, he'd think about it later. Maybe he'd auction it off and make a ruthless profit. After leaving the valley, he saw Zhu Xian'er looking at him with a complicated and surprised gaze. Presumably, it was his reminder that saved her life, but he had to compete with her for the crimson-red chilling ice grass, so she definitely felt complicated. Previously, Ling Han was only in the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, but now he shockingly stepped into the 7th layer. This advancement was too terrifying. You! Xian jumped out, seething with killing intent. Ling Han smiled, and said, I just saved your life, and now you're going to bite the hand that feeds you? Xian paused and swept his gaze around, seeing that many people were staring at him with unfriendly expressions. Knowing that he'd incurred public anger, he immediately snorted, took a few steps back, and said, I'll spare you this time, but the next time we meet, I'll definitely take your head. Ling Han only laughed. The next time they met, he'd probably already broken through to the spiritual pedestal tier, and at that time, who knew who'd run and who'd chase after him? However, the battle in the sky was becoming more and more disadvantageous for the humans. The demonic ape was too powerful, and unlike the other beasts in the forest, it was indeed bloodthirsty and belligerent, but its intelligence wasn't affected. This meant that it only gained the benefit of increased lethality, and its battle prowess naturally increased without decreasing. Retreat! Everyone, retreat! A flower blossom tier elite shouted loudly. They were going to suffer defeat in this battle, and the only thing they could do now was to retreat first, then gather more elites to come over. This time, even spiritual infant tier elites would be alarmed. Ling Han didn't care. Anyways, the heavenly luck stone was already in his hands, so retreat was retreat. He'd go guard the crimson-red chilling ice grass, and when he reached the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, he'd use the Black Tower's power installation to take away the stock of spirit medicine, not wasting the power installation's benefit of improving physique. Wait! With a long shout, a figure shot over, high above, yet emitted a domineering aura that intimidated the 9 heavens and 10 lands, extremely shocking. There were lines of vein-like patterns blossoming around his body, and they were like blooming celestial flowers. The scene was astonishing. At first, Ling Han thought it was Yao Huiyu, as only such a domineering youngster could release such a powerful aura. However, as he focused his gaze, he could faintly see that this was a man in his 30s in the prime of his life, brimming with natural might, as if he was a natural emperor. Ling Han's mouth slowly gaped open, revealing an expression of astonishment. This person was actually... Chapter 4:15. This young man was actually a heaven-grade alchemist. What kind of joke was this? However, as a mighty elite of heaven tier, how could it be that he would deliberately put on such a show just to tease a few juniors like them? If that was the case, then they would really think too highly of themselves. Everyone could not help but think of what Ling Han had said previously. Later, even if Jia Zhang and the others knelt before him and kowtowed in apology, Ling Han might not even pay them any attention. At that time, when they heard it, it was only a wild boast, but now, it was something that everyone believed without a doubt. A heaven-grade alchemist, what kind of awesome existence was that? Even heaven-tier warriors had to kneel down and greet them, so it was obvious how important and high their status was. A mere junior of Flower Blossom tier was really not even fit to carry his shoes. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, "You're too polite, sir. How should I address you?" He was such a big shot, and even Yin Shuiyang came out to greet him, yet he did not even know who he was. This was a pretense, ha 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 ha, Yin Shuiyang, I am the 7th Pavilion Master of Spirit Treasures Pavilion. If Grandmaster Ling does not mind, you can just call me Little Yang, Yin Shuiyang said with a smile. Everyone instantly felt a chill run down their spines. With this person's physique, who would dare to call him Little Yang? However, how many people in this world were qualified to call him Little Yang? Aside from a few supreme existences of shattering void tier, there were probably only a few high-level heaven tier warriors. 7th Pavilion Master. Ling Han also felt a chill run down his spine. He could not call him Little Yang no matter what. Grandmaster Ling wants to participate in today's auction? Yin Shuiyang asked. That's right. Ling Han nodded. Please, please. Yin Shuiyang hurriedly made a gesture of invitation. Ling Han walked forward, and instantly, everyone, especially Jia Zhang and that profligate young man, felt relieved. However, Ling Han stopped again, and said to Yin Shuiyang, 7th Pavilion Master, if I were to settle a score with a few people, wouldn't it appear as the strong bullying the weak? Yin Shuiyang's expression immediately darkened, and he said, oh, could it be that someone offended Grandmaster Ling? One wanted to call him Grandpa, another wanted me to be his follower, and there were even a few people who wanted to beat me up, Ling Han said with a smile. Hearing him say so, Jia Zhang, Wu Long, and that profligate young man were about to cry. How could they have known that Ling Han was a heaven-grade alchemist? Otherwise, even if they were given 10,000 times the courage, they would not dare to say such words. Who is it? Yin Shuiyang's gaze swept over them, and a terrifying pressure instantly swept over them. At this moment, he was no longer an amiable fatty, but a powerful warrior of heaven tier who could make the heavens and earth tremble with a stomp of his foot. Everyone felt their very souls tremble, and could not muster the slightest bit of will to resist. Ling Han also nodded inwardly. This fatty's cultivation had probably reached the 4th or 5th layer of heaven tier, but he could not sense it specifically. After all, he currently only had a sliver of divine sense of heaven tier. Jia Zhang and the others, as well as that profligate young man, all stood up, trembling, and knelt on the ground, saying, we beg for Grandmaster Ling's forgiveness. Yet Ling Han acted as if he had not seen it, and began to converse with Yin Shuiyang. There was absolutely no substance to his words, and he was obviously giving Jia Zhang, Wu Long, and that profligate young man the cold shoulder. Indeed, they had all knelt down, but whether they accepted the apology or not depended on Ling Han's mood. The 5 dragons looked at each other, then hardened their hearts and began to slap their own faces. When the profligate young man saw this, he hurriedly kowtowed as if pounding onions, really afraid that Yin Shuiyang would kill them all in a fit of rage. "Grandmaster Ling, the auction is about to begin. Why don't you go inside and take a seat first?" Yin Shuiyang said. He did not want so many people to gather in front of the Spirit Treasures Pavilion's entrance. After all, it would not be a good influence. Ling Han only smiled at Jia Zhang, Wu Long, and that profligate young man, walked up the stairs, and entered the main hall. Jia Zhang, Wu Long, and that profligate young man broke out in a cold sweat. Although Ling Han did not blame them, would offending a heaven-grade alchemist end up so easily? Under Yin Shuiyang's lead, Ling Han arrived at a private room. This was also the most luxurious private room in the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. At present, on this floor, only Ling Han had received such an honor. Generally speaking, this kind of top-class private room would only be used for special auctions that would be held once every decade or so. It was specially reserved for shattering void tier elites and existences of similar status, such as heaven-grade alchemists. Towards this kind of empty reputation, Ling Han was already very indifferent. He was not startled by the honor and sat down in the private room. As expected, the auction only took a short while before it began. After Yin Shuiyang accompanied Ling Han for a while, he took his leave, and very generously gave Ling Han an overdraft limit of 100,000 3-star origin crystals. In reality, the net worth of a heaven-grade alchemist was more than this, so why was the limit that Yin Shuiyang asked for was so low? It was simple. Perhaps shattering void tier elites wouldn't care about the inheritance of the 12 palaces, but the divine treasure trove was too important. If he was targeted by a shattering void tier elite, then Ling Han would definitely be doomed. Thus, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion naturally wouldn't invest too much on this unstable point. To be able to give a limit of 100,000 3-star origin crystals, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion was actually very, very generous. Ling Han sat, and one item after another was sold, but there were also some that were not sold. As expected of the large-scale auction that was held once a month, there were many items of all kinds, but Ling Han didn't pay attention to any of them. On the other hand, there was an auction like this once a month, so there couldn't possibly be too many precious items. Perhaps, after another month, there would be astonishing treasures that would be taken out in the annual super auction. Ha ha ha. A wave of loud laughter suddenly rang out in the auction hall. Ling Han was originally drowsy, but when he heard such a loud commotion, he couldn't help but walk over, and saw that the auctioneer was actually holding a brick. A brick! Ling Han also wanted to laugh, but when he thought about it, the Spirit Treasures Pavilion wouldn't go overboard and use a brick to fool people, so he walked over carefully. This was actually not a brick, but its shape was very similar. However, if he looked closely, he would discover that the edges were irregular, as if it had originally belonged to another gigantic rock, and now it had been forcefully knocked off. One side of the brick was flat, but the other side actually had half a word, or it could be said that it was only the remnants of a few strokes, but he couldn't tell what it was exactly. This brick has been carefully examined by several great appraisers of our pavilion, but they were unable to analyze its specific structure and use. The only thing we can confirm is that this was once carved on a stone tablet, and has at least 100,000 years of history. Additionally, this rock is extremely hard, and was obtained from some ancient site, the auctioneer explained. He seemed to be unable to find any good points about this brick, so he could only brag as much as he could. Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth, but still couldn't find anything special about this brick. Only those few strokes of writing seemed to make something come alive in his heart. Interesting. The starting price is 10 origin crystals, the auctioneer said. Obviously, he didn't have much hope for this item. 20. 50. 100. Although he temporarily didn't know what use this brick had, in at least 100,000 years of history, there were still many people who were willing to take it back to collect it. 1,000, Ling Han said. If the quality of the origin crystal was not specified, then it was only 1 star. For Ling Han, a 1-star origin crystal was really not worth much. 2,000. Someone made a bid, and it actually sounded a little familiar. Chapter 4:16. Ling Han said inwardly. This was the golden blood demonic ape's innate mystical power. So powerful, 3 heads and 6 arms, each body equivalent to a demonic ape, with astonishing battle prowess. This demonic ape alone could suppress everyone, and now there were 2 more, who could resist? Haha, interesting. Yao Huiyu's fighting spirit was like fire as he charged back with his sword, his face full of fighting spirit as if extremely excited. You're qualified for me to attack seriously. His expression turned serious as the mysterious 3000 was activated, and a sword light illuminated the 5 regions. Rain Emperor also charged back, swinging his tyrant fists continuously with an earth-shattering momentum. With these 2 taking the front, the others also charged up one after another. To be able to cultivate to the flower blossom tier, which one was stupid? Though the demonic ape's 3 heads and 6 arms ability was shocking, it definitely couldn't be used endlessly, and after unleashing a powerful move, it would be at its weakest. At that time, they'd take this demonic ape's head. For flower blossom tier warriors, the heavenly luck stone was completely useless, but this demonic ape was different. It was a king tier, and at the peak of the flower blossom tier at that, its flesh was definitely a great tonic. The demonic ape roared and waved its 6 arms, its battle prowess extremely terrifying, completely suppressing everyone. However, Yao Huiyu continuously unleashed the mysterious 3000, posing a great threat to the demonic ape, and Rain Emperor formed a fist ray with equally shocking destructive power. Though the 2 were riddled with wounds and continuously vomited blood, they managed to forcefully stabilize the situation. The key now was whether Yao Huiyu and Rain Emperor could hold on longer, or the demonic ape's mystical power could last longer. This would decide which side the victory belonged to. It was really hard to say. No one knew how long the demonic ape's mystical power could last, but Yao Huiyu and Rain Emperor's injuries were clear to everyone. They definitely weren't light injuries. Being clawed by the demonic ape, bones could easily be seen and blood splattered in the sky. Just bleeding was a big problem. As Ling Han watched, he muttered inwardly, these people are so desperate. If they really defeat the demonic ape and run into the cave, but they don't have the heavenly luck stone, would they go crazy? Although this demonic ape is violent, it's not stupid. Is it because of the heavenly luck stone that it suppressed that chaotic will? It's said that the heavenly luck stone is born from the karmic luck of heaven and earth, and it's the embodiment of the will of heaven and earth. It's not impossible to say that it's able to resist demonic chi. Then if I take away the heavenly luck stone, this demonic ape will definitely have its mind confused by the demonic chi. At that time, it will become a muddle-headed ferocious creature that only knows how to kill. The great battle was still ongoing. Yao Huiyu and Rain Emperor were both existences with incomparably firm willpower, and furthermore, they were battle maniacs. Battling with a king of demonic beasts like the demonic ape would be extremely beneficial to their future path of martial art. Therefore, they would rather fight until they were heavily injured. They believed that their gains would be greater. However, the demonic ape did not want to do so. It was not stupid. Why would it risk its life here? There was no benefit to it. It immediately turned around and shot down into the valley, directly burrowing into it. I won't play with you guys anymore. Rain Emperor and Yao Huiyu both gave a long howl and charged down, disappearing into the cave. When the other flower blossom tier elites saw this, they were obviously unwilling to fall behind. Chasing after the devil ape was secondary, the key was that there was the heavenly luck stone inside. Pang, pang, pang. Entering the cave, everyone obviously couldn't see the battle situation, and didn't dare to chase inside. That would be suicidal. They could only hear a thunder-like bombardment. The earth quaked and the mountains swayed, as if the entire world was collapsing. After at least an hour, the entire mountain was sent flying. With a pang, it smashed 10 miles away. Instantly, the powerful impact shoveled up the ground, and the faraway ground arched over 6 meters high, charging towards the direction of the valley. However, for spiritual pedestal tier and spiritual ocean tier martial artists, this kind of impact was obviously a small matter. They only took a glance, and then turned their gazes back to the valley. The entire mountain was sent flying, obviously leaving behind a barren land. The flower blossom tier elites rose into the air one after another, as if fleeing for their lives. The mountain had disappeared, leaving behind a huge crater. This crater was like a lake, filled with thick black mist that could not be dispersed. It was constantly evolving into all kinds of shapes, such as beasts, people, and weapons. It was this black mist that made the flower blossom tier elites flee in time. Demonic Qi. Ling Han was shocked. With such dense demonic Qi, could a section of Azura Demon Emperor's body be suppressed underneath, or was it a large black rock? Towards this black Qi, even the devil ape had an instinctive fear and fled quickly, not wanting to be touched at all. Who would have thought that under the heavenly Luck Stone was such a demonic land? Could this be the source of Dark Devil Forest's demonic Qi? Such terrifying demonic Qi, making me have the urge to go crazy even from so far away. Retreat a bit more. If too much demonic Qi enters the body, then one's mind will be completely chaotic, turning into a puppet that only knows to kill. Everyone retreated one after another. Losing the mountain's suppression, the demonic Qi surged out without restraint, as if to completely envelop the entire Dark Devil Forest under the demonic Qi. Gagaga, many thanks, everyone. A hoarse voice sounded, followed by the sound of friction. A copper coffin seemed to grow legs, sliding all the way over. Thousand Corpse Sect, someone immediately called out. Instantly, everyone felt a layer of goosebumps. This sect was definitely hated by everyone, and everyone wanted to beat them up. They were too shameless and immoral, actually stealing the corpses of elites and refining them into corpse soldiers. Did they still have any humanity left? Elder Nine Clouds was also in the crowd, but he didn't use his full strength, because once he attacked with all his strength, he couldn't conceal his corpse chi at all. Moreover, the people of Thousand Corpse Sect were strong in corpse soldiers, and their own battle prowess was actually quite ordinary. He couldn't help but be annoyed inwardly. Which idiot in the sect was actually appearing so openly in front of the world? Wasn't this drawing hatred for the sect? Ling Han's expression changed slightly. He recognized this copper coffin. 3 Lives Corpse Casket, Rong Huan Xian. No, now it wasn't the real Rong Huan Xian, but Azura Demon Emperor. If it was the real Rong Huan Xian, he should have a need for the heavenly luck stone, and similarly avoid demonic Qi. But now, with his body controlled by Azura Demon Emperor, Rong Huan Xian was definitely going for the demonic Qi and the black stone. For others, demonic Qi was poison and couldn't be touched. But for Azura Demon Emperor, it was equivalent to a great tonic. If there really was a large black stone underneath, and Azura Demon Emperor obtained it, what kind of disaster would it cause? Ling Han didn't even hesitate for a moment, directly leaping out and unleashing the Demon Birth Sword, slashing towards the 3 Lives Corpse coffin. It was also a 10th tier spirit tool, and without the Demon Birth Sword, there really was no way to resist. Hong, the sword chi slashed, and the 3 Lives Corpse coffin was forced to stop. The sword chi surged, and the light was dazzling. You actually didn't die. Peng, the coffin lid opened, and Rong Huan Xian's figure appeared. His gaze quickly locked onto Ling Han, and he emitted a terrifying chill. This time, this lord will make you disappear completely. Chapter 417. Alright, it was getting more and more lively now, with all kinds of demons and monsters appearing. Remnant of the Thousand Corpse Sect, you dare come here, seeking death. A flower blossom tier elite attacked, striking at Rong Huan Xian. This kind of evil sect's heir, regardless of cultivation level, was punished by everyone, even if Rong Huan Xian had the title of an alchemist. From this, it could be seen how much the Thousand Corpse Sect had incurred the wrath of the heavens and the people back then. Even if tens of thousands of years had passed, once one arrived at this sect, they would still be filled with killing intent. Gagaga, want to kill me? You're still 100,000 years too early. Rong Huan Xian laughed loudly, but it was only pleasing words, and he immediately entered the 3 Lives Corpse casket. His body indeed couldn't die, but his physical body was too weak, and he was only in the 9th layer of the gushing spring tier now, so how could he withstand a flower blossom tier attack? Wang, wang, wang. The attack landed on the 3 lives corpse casket, and instantly, this spirit tool was activated passively. Multiple patterns lit up, as if the entire casket had come alive. Shua, a pillar of light surged out, turning into a skeleton soldier that wielded a long spear, piercing towards the flower blossom tier cultivator. Pooh, the spear pierced out, directly piercing through the flower blossom tier's left shoulder. Seeing this scene, everyone was dumbfounded. That was a flower blossom tier, but he couldn't even block a single attack. If he hadn't dodged in time, his heart would probably have been directly shaken. Too terrifying, what treasure was that could suppress even a flower blossom tier? However, some people looked at Ling Han with strange gazes, because Ling Han also struck just now, but why was he completely fine? The sword in this youngster's hand couldn't be a high-level spirit tool, right? Ling Han was also secretly astonished. Similarly, a 10th tier spirit tool, the 3 lives corpse casket was too awesome. Hiding in the casket, not only did the defense become invincible, it was like having thorns, and whoever hit it would be out of luck. More importantly, the 3 lives corpse casket could actually move on its own, like a carriage, too convenient. However, if Ling Han also hid in the casket, he definitely wouldn't do it. 3 lives corpse casket. That's 3 lives corpse casket. Elder Nine Cloud's eyes lit up. The 1000 Corpse sect had 3 precious treasures, the demonic noise saber, the pond of the underworld, and the 3 lives corpse casket. However, the pond of the underworld wasn't a spirit tool, but the land of inheritance of the 1000 Corpse sect, as well as a holy land for cultivation. Cultivating there for a day was equivalent to cultivating for a year in the outside world, but its location was unknown since several tens of thousands of years ago. Now, the demonic noise saber was in the hands of the current sect master, and the 3 lives corpse casket had also appeared. 2 of the 3 supreme treasures had appeared. Was the yellow spring pond still far away? Was the 1000 Corpse sect going to prosper? Elder Nine Clouds was extremely excited. If he could also obtain that spirit tool on Ling Han that could accommodate living things, the 1000 Corpse sect would be able to establish a flourishing age, or even surpass an empire that had existed for several tens of thousands of years. Rong Huanxian cackled strangely, and said, "This lord won't play with you guys anymore. When I obtain the primal chaos source rock and refine it into this lord's body, the entire world will tremble under this lord's demonic palm." Does the chaos source stone refer to the black stone? A question flashed through Ling Han's mind, but he charged out again without hesitation. He definitely wouldn't allow the Azura Demon Emperor to obtain the Blackstone. No matter how strong the 1000 Corpse sect was, it could still be suppressed, but the Azura Demon Emperor was a god. Once he recovered his full battle prowess, then the vast lands would suffer a calamity. "Brat, when this lord recovers his cultivation, you'll be the first to be killed." Rong Huanxian shouted angrily as he charged into the demonic chi on the 3 lives corpse casket. No one dared to stop him. The flower blossom tier cultivator's encounter just now was still in front of them, and no one wanted to repeat the same mistake. Ling Han chased after him, and Hunyo naturally charged into the demonic chi as well. The two instantly disappeared from everyone's sight. The demonic chi was not only dense to the point of blocking vision, it also had a powerful isolation effect on divine sense. Thus, even flower blossom tier cultivators immediately lost track of the 3. At this moment, there was only one word in everyone's mind: idiots. That was demonic chi. Didn't you see that even flower blossom tier cultivators didn't want to be contaminated by it? You puny spiritual ocean tier and gushing spring tier cultivators ran in. However, the flower blossom tier cultivators started a fierce battle again, launching attacks at the demonic ape. One thing was another. "Brat, don't think that just because your tier is higher than this lord will be afraid of you." Rong Huanxian's voice came from the casket. He was only in the 9th layer of the gushing spring tier, so he couldn't possibly be Ling Han's opponent. When this lord refines some demonic chi of primal chaos, increases my cultivation, and obtains the primal chaos source rock, I'll use your life as a blood sacrifice for this lord's new life. Oh, that primal chaos source rock or something, it can make you very powerful, Ling Han said indifferently. Rong Huanxian snorted, and said, this lord was formed from a wisp of demonic chi of primal chaos. I suffered a disadvantage because I didn't have a physical body, so several tens of thousands of years ago, I was suppressed and split into 99 parts. However, the primal chaos source rock is of the same origin as this lord, and is one of the hardest substances in the world. As long as this lord refines it into a body, who in this world can be my opponent? At that time, this lord's physical body will be invincible, demonic thoughts will soar, and everyone will be enslaved by this lord. How could this old monster be so honest? He even revealed all his secrets. But thinking about it again, he actually didn't reveal any secrets. He only revealed some of his past, but didn't say how he could be killed. No wonder he could only be dismembered and suppressed several tens of thousands of years ago, because he wasn't truly a living being, but formed from demonic chi. Rong Huanxian didn't only care about boasting. He was currently absorbing the demonic chi. Wang, 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 the aura he emitted was strengthening. Although he was still in the gushing spring tier, he could clearly feel that his tier was increasing extremely quickly. Ling Han sighed. Why was it that he kept encountering monsters? With the protection of the 3 lives corpse casket, he definitely couldn't stop Rong Huanxian from increasing his tier. But where did the demonic chi here come from? There was definitely a black stone here that released so much demonic chi. However, it was suppressed by the large mountain before, so it could only spread through the ground into the forest, and now it turned into a vast ocean. As long as he took away the black stone, which was the primal chaos source rock that Rong Huanxian spoke of, then everything would be solved. Ling Han made a prompt decision and pulled Hunyou away, beginning to search for the source of this demonic chi. He asked Small Tower about the primal chaos source rock and primal chaos demonic chi, and it turned out that Small Tower really knew the relationship between the two, telling him many secrets. If Azura Demon Emperor really fused with the primal chaos source rock, then at least he couldn't be killed in the vast lands. The primal chaos source rock was too hard. But this didn't seem to make any difference. Azura Demon Emperor was originally a mass of demonic chi, and even after being divided into 9 parts, he could still wreak havoc for 10,000 years. The demonic chi was like an ocean, and Ling Han's divine sense couldn't be released. Now, black spots appeared on his body, and his divine sense was the same, no longer clear like water, but filled with violent impulses. On the other hand, Hunyou was completely fine, but there was a faint light in her dantian, as if a vein-like pattern had lit up. The little girl was much more of a freak than him. He flashed into the Black Tower, and immediately summoned the power of the Black Tower to expel the demonic chi in his body. His skin returned to its original state at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his divine sense was unobstructed, pure and untainted. Ling Han once again exited the Black Tower. With the experience of resisting the Black Stone, he could persist for a few minutes even in such dense demonic chi. No, let's compete to see who finds a stone like this first. Ling Han smiled at Hunyou, waving the small black stone in his hand. Okay, Hunyou immediately said crisply, appearing very excited as she leaped out. If Nyo wins, I want to eat 3 roasted pig legs. Chapter 418. Ling Han and Hunyou started a large search, but this large area was shrouded in demonic chi, blocking vision and divine sense, greatly affecting their scouting ability. Hunyou was no exception. For 3 days in a row, they didn't find anything. This was the range of a mountain, and even if it wasn't large, it wouldn't be small either. Rong Huanxian's strength was increasing rapidly. He obtained the inheritance of the 1,000 Corpse sect, and should have only been able to cultivate corpse chi, but who asked an old monster to take control of his body now, allowing him to still cultivate demonic chi. Under the endless devouring, he practically advanced a level every day. Rong Huanxian broke through to the spiritual ocean tier 2 days later, and today he was already at the second layer of the spiritual ocean tier. This advancement speed was shockingly fast. At this rate, he would reach the 9th layer of the spiritual ocean tier in 7 days, and then the spiritual pedestal tier in 2 days. Once he entered the spiritual pedestal tier, with the secret arts Azura Demon Emperor grasped, plus the 3 lives corpse casket, he had enough confidence to suppress Ling Han. And after 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, what level would his cultivation reach? Under the 3 lives corpse casket's protection, Rong Huanxian was like he had the Black Tower, and no one could hurt him, at least not the current Ling Han. He had to find the black stone as soon as possible. Rong Huanxian could reach such a shocking level just by absorbing the drifting demonic qi, so if he really refined the black stone into his body, how powerful would he be? Ling Han and Hunyou continued their search, and with each passing day, it became more and more urgent. Ling Han was no longer concerned about how the battle was going on outside. He reckoned that if the demonic ape didn't escape, it would definitely be blasted into pieces. After all, the elites of the human race were constantly rushing over. So what if the demonic ape was a king of the demon race? On the 11th day, Rong Huanxian indeed broke through to the spiritual pedestal tier. This speed would make anyone jealous. Ga, this lord is coming to find you. Rong Huanxian's cold laughter sounded in the demonic qi. So fast. He did not need to increase his strength to the level of the flower blossom tier or the spiritual infant tier, because he would soon abandon his current body. Any living creature's body was not the best vessel for his soul, aside from the primal chaos source rock. Therefore, as long as he was strong enough to suppress Ling Han, he would be able to capture this brat and seize the mysterious spiritual weapon from him. That was something that he could not forget. In the demonic qi, his battle prowess could obtain a shocking increase, and the spiritual pedestal tier was definitely enough. On the other hand, he was really afraid that Ling Han would find the chaos source rock and ruin his fortuitous opportunity. Ling Han gave a long howl, informing Hunyou to meet up with him to avoid encountering Rong Huanxian and suffering a loss. In this place that was permeated with demonic qi, both his and Hunyou's vision and senses were greatly limited, especially Hunyou. She was known for her speed in the first place, but she didn't know that running blindly would cause trouble. Old devil, come and fight this young master. Ling Han laughed loudly. He looked young, but his soul came from 10,000 years ago, so he felt like an old man to anyone here. Only in front of Azura Demon Emperor did he have to pretend to be young. He was indeed much younger. Stubborn brat, when this lord roamed the world, your old ancestor was drinking milk who knows where, actually daring to be insolent in front of this lord. Today, this lord will completely kill you. This lord is also very interested in that treasured tool on you. Rong Huanxian sneered. What's with all the nonsense? Hurry up and bring it on. Ling Han quickly retreated. He had no interest in fighting with Rong Huanxian. The latter had 3 lives corpse caskets, and like him, couldn't be killed. Finding the black stone was the way to go. Rong Huanxian flew over and reached out with his right hand. With a clench, the demonic qi in this space actually danced rapidly, turning into a giant black hand that grabbed at Ling Han. Ga, you didn't expect this, right? This lord is formed from primal chaos demonic qi. Here, my battle prowess can increase by at least 10-fold, where are you going to hide? Rong Huanxian laughed loudly. Not necessarily. Ling Han's figure flashed and punched out. The thunder battle armor activated, and instantly, lightning surged, turning into 8 giant war elephants that welcomed the black hand. Hong! The thunder war elephants charged at the black hand, but it was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. They only shattered themselves, but couldn't slow down the black hand in the slightest. As expected, when Rong Huanxian said his battle prowess could increase 10-fold here, he wasn't bragging. Die! Rong Huanxian clenched his right hand, and that black hand also clenched tightly, completely swallowing Ling Han's figure. However, Rong Huanxian immediately frowned because he felt that Ling Han had already disappeared, and this clench didn't hurt him. Sure enough, when the black hand disappeared, Ling Han also appeared, completely unscathed. Old devil, although you retreated into your turtle shell a few days ago, and I couldn't do anything to you. But if you want to hurt me, that's only the ravings of a fool, Ling Han said with a laugh. Rong Huanxian's gaze was cold, and his face was filled with anger, but he knew that Ling Han was right. Neither of them could do anything to the other. He felt displeased, but didn't care too much. He already had this realization long ago in the Devil's Sky Mystery Realm. Then he would settle for the next best thing, and find the primal chaos source rock, refine it for himself, then suppress Ling Han and seize the treasures on this brat. Ling Han, Nyo found the big rock. Nyo won. Hu Nyo's cheerful voice sounded, and a black rock the size of a buffalo actually ran out of the demonic chi. There were 2 small feet at the bottom. This scene was a bit strange. The main thing was that Hu Nyo was really too small. When she hugged the rock, she could only reach her 2 small feet. Gagaga, you even specially delivered the primal chaos source rock for this lord, thank you very much. Rong Huanxian was overjoyed, and no longer paid attention to Ling Han, instead grabbing at the black rock with his palm. Once he touched the black rock, he would transform into his original body and enter it, abandoning this human shell. When he completely refined the primal chaos source rock into his own body, and then found the other 8 suppressed remnant souls, he wouldn't have to fear even the Heaven Sword Palace of the past. This is Ling Han's, not for you. Hu Nyo called out in dissatisfaction. Xiao, the black rock actually disappeared into thin air, and Rong Huanxian's palm instantly grabbed empty air. He hurriedly turned around, and saw that Hu Nyo actually appeared in front of Ling Han while hugging the big rock. Teleportation. Just now, that girl actually used the teleportation technique. Rong Huanxian was a bit dumbfounded. Teleportation involved the great Tao of space, and even in his world, there were very few people that could successfully cultivate it, but a little girl from the lower realm could use it with ease. Moreover, she even teleported with such a big primal chaos source rock, which made him feel inconceivable. Moreover, he also realized why Hu Nyo was also unafraid of the effects of the demonic chi. Nyo, good job. Ling Han laughed loudly and grabbed Hu Nyo, ready to put the little girl into the Black Tower at any time. No, that's this lord's. Rong Huanxian hurriedly pounced over. Seeing the black rock close by, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. With the primal chaos source rock as a body, this was its race's dream. Touched. Azura Demon Emperor unhesitatingly pulled his divine sense out of Rong Huanxian's body and tunneled into the black rock. Chapter 419. The Fourth Killing Formation. Zhu Xian'er asked in surprise. According to legends, heaven and earth have spirits that formed 10 natural killing formations, Ling Han explained. The 10 great killing formations are all extremely terrifying. The second killing formation to the 10th killing formation can even kill shattering void tier elites. Then what about the first killing formation? Zhu Xian'er couldn't help but ask. The first killing formation. Ling Han paused. It's also known as the God-slaying formation. Could it be that it can even kill gods? Zhu Xian'er exclaimed in shock. That's right. Ling Han nodded. The first killing formation can even obliterate gods, and is the world's first killing formation. However, the art of formations has been lost, so who set up such a killing formation now? The fourth killing formation could even kill high-level shattering void tier elites, and there were actually people who could set it up these days. Putting aside whether there was such a formation master, just the materials used to set up the formation were extremely extravagant. Then aren't we in extreme danger? Zhu Xian'er asked. Ling Han nodded, and said, I don't know what force it is, actually using the fourth killing formation to besiege Million Treasures City. Are they trying to turn the entire city into a land of death? Million Treasures City is the center of wealth in the Middle State, and its value lies in the Spirit Treasures Pavilion and the Alchemist Society. If everyone dies, what benefits would they gain? If it was occupying some treasured land, that could still be explained, but Million Treasures City was definitely not some holy land for cultivation, and there were no worldly treasures, so was there a need to unleash the fourth killing formation? Truly strange. Ling Han shook his head, and said, "We can't possibly charge through this formation. Even if a Shattering Void Tier elite came, they'd have to be at least in the 9th layer of the Shattering Void Tier to be qualified to charge through, or else even if a dozen came, they'd all kneel." Zhu Xian'er naturally agreed. No one knew how many Shattering Void Tier elites there were in total in the vast lands, but at most a dozen or so, and even if all of them came, they might not be able to break through this killing formation. They slowly retreated, afraid that they'd trigger a reaction from this killing formation and be killed on the spot. Fortunately, although the fourth killing formation could kill Shattering Void Tier elites, it didn't seem to care much about nobodies like them. The formation didn't move, and there wasn't any reaction. On the other hand, it was also because they didn't go too deep. Otherwise, a killing formation was a killing formation, after all, and wouldn't miss a small fish because the net was too big. They retreated from the formation's area, and Million Treasures City once again appeared in front of them. In reality, this was the entire killing formation's core, but because the Heavenly Treasures Pavilion also activated a great formation to resist, this place became a relatively safe area. Han Lin snorted coldly, and a majestic and overbearing figure appeared in front of them. Shenyuan Ziguang. He stared at Ling Han, killing intent circulating. This wasn't the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, and was even outside Million Treasures City. No one could stop him from killing people. Ling Han waved his hand, and said, "You guys go into the city first, I'll deal with this guy. Be careful." Zhu Xian'er was as gentle as water. "Beat him up." Hunyo waved her little fists. "Beat him up." Helian Sun Shui was now leaning towards Hunyo, because under Lu Yutong and Li Xichan's brainwashing, she obviously wouldn't trust Zhu Xian'er, so she could only imitate Hunyo. The 3 girls, 2 adults and 1 child, returned to the city, while Ling Han confronted Shenyuan Ziguang. Ling Han didn't dare to have any contempt. If it was a battle between equals, he was confident that he wouldn't lose to anyone. However, not only was Shenyuan Ziguang's tier much higher than his battle prowess was also extremely outstanding. In reality, he was in a weaker position. Shenyuan Ziguang didn't waste any words, and directly struck out with a palm from afar. Hong, a sea of flames spread out, sweeping wildly towards Ling Han. Ling Han used the Demon Fairy step and charged towards his opponent. His tier was much lower than his opponent's, and it would be too foolish to pull apart the distance and exchange blows. In battle, one naturally had to display one's strong points. Using one's weak points to meet the enemy's strong points was really too unwise. "Humph, dream on." Shenyuan Ziguang sneered. He similarly used a movement technique, pulling apart the distance between him and Ling Han while launching a powerful attack, taking the complete initiative. His martial arts talent really wasn't inferior to Ling Han's, and even surpassed it in some aspects. At least 22 flashes of qi. At present, he was the #1 person of the younger generation. Under the amplification of the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, it was as if there were 23 of him attacking Ling Han together, truly shocking. Ling Han calmly dealt with it. He had many trump cards: 2, Demon Birth Sword, Thunder Battle Armor, Body of Iron Sheet. Which one of them couldn't turn the tide of battle? He similarly sneered, and said, "Since you don't dare to fight in close combat, then try this move." His figure retreated continuously, instantly pulling apart a distance of 30 meters from Shenyuan Ziguang. Previously, he had been trying to close the distance between the two of them, and this sudden retreat was naturally out of Shenyuan Ziguang's expectations, causing Shenyuan Ziguang to be slightly stifled. He didn't counterattack at the first moment, fearing that this was a trap. Once he stepped in, Ling Han also leapt in. "Humph, my cultivation is higher than yours, and my origin power is denser than yours. You're even less of a match for me if you pull apart the distance," Shenyuan Ziguang said proudly. With a palm strike, 23 fire tigers appeared, pouncing towards Ling Han. It was only 30 meters, and this bit of distance couldn't exhaust origin power at all. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, "You think too highly of yourself." He made a drawing motion of a bow, and instantly, a speck of light appeared, immediately turning into the shape of an arrow. Xiao, it shot towards Shenyuan Ziguang. Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow. As fast as flowing light. Shenyuan Ziguang was greatly shocked, and hurriedly activated his origin power to protect himself. Pa, this arrow shot into his chest. Fortunately, his origin power shield activated in time, blocking this arrow. Even so, he still let out a muffled groan, feeling so uncomfortable that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. In terms of power, he was obviously above Ling Han, but Ling Han concentrated his power on a single point, while he had to set up defenses all over his body. This obviously couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. It couldn't be helped, this arrow was too fast, and he had no idea where it would shoot at him. Left with no choice, he could only defend himself. Ling Han calmly retreated, shaking off the 23 fire tigers, and said with a smile, "You're only a so-so." Shenyuan Ziguang's face was filled with sullen anger. Whether in terms of tier or battle prowess, he should be able to firmly suppress Ling Han, yet he suffered a small loss under this one strike, which made him feel that his pride had been wounded. For a godlike man like him, it had always been only him who defied his tier to defeat other geniuses, so how could he be defied by someone else? He was furious, and a flame ignited on top of his head, turning into a true dragon, true phoenix, and other ancient mystical beasts, displaying an extremely special bloodline. "You're dead for sure," he declared coldly. Ling Han laughed, and said, "You really know how to boast. Who didn't know how to format?" Hong! Just at this moment, the black fog actually surged, and faintly visible were actually sabers, swords, axes, and battle axes, densely interwoven with terrifying vein-like patterns, surging with a shocking cold light. Ling Han's expression changed, and he immediately ran towards the city. Shenyuan Ziguang was furious. Seeing that he had shown his might, this brat actually gave up the battle. He was just about to scold him, but when he saw the transformed black fog, he instantly felt a chill in his heart. Similarly, he exerted strength in his legs and ran towards the city gates. The fourth killing formation had been activated. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.